Bochan is a pathetic loser who got cursed by a witch and now claps all the lives of whatever he touches. However, his miserable life turns softer when a hot busty maid starts living with him to serve all his needs, including the degenerate ones. But before all this, somewhere in a dark mansion lives a boy who is death incarnate. After a long time, he writes a letter to his mom and dad about his well-being, telling them about how he is still cursed by the witch, and his touches cause any living thing to die. However, despite his curse, what he worries more about is the busty maid living with him, Alice, causing him to bust. Later, she serves him tea and cookies, asking him if he's going to send the letter he was writing, and he tells her that he couldn't, after not sending one for a long time, saying that it's for practice. Despite his ability to clap people's lives, Alice refuses to stay away and even does the opposite, tempting him to touch her and get him to react towards her advances. Just then, she shows him her snoo-snoo, causing him to panic, and when asked, she thought that he wanted to touch her smoother than butter legs. He scolds her for trying to get him to touch her, saying that she should prioritize her safety around his death touches. But Alice doesn't care and gets closer, offering him more of her delicious cookies. When he's about to eat it, she puts the cookie in her mouth, forcing him to bite it off her, and when he does, she makes happy noises and teases him for the indirect kiss. Later, while sitting on a swing, Bochan contemplates how the witch cursed him in the past, telling him that he will never love anyone and no one will ever love him. It frustrates Bochan that he can't remember who the witch is or why she cursed him, as he believes that if he can reverse the curse, he can finally go home after being exiled by his family. Suddenly, a butterfly passes by, and when he tries to dodge, he accidentally touches the tree holding his swing, causing it to die, and he falls off the swing. Still on the floor, Alice pops up wanting to suffocate him with her snoo-snoo, but Bochan quickly gets up telling her to stop, but she tells him that seeing him flustered makes her want to tease him more. Seeing Alice in front of him, Bochan recalls how she was the only daughter of the head maid of his household, whom he had known since little. And 2 years ago, she showed up unannounced for some reason to serve him. She once again shows him her smoother than butter legs to cheer him up, and he warns her that he might fold and want to touch her. Hearing that makes Alice want to touch him even more, and she tempts him, saying how he should touch her and more. The next morning, Bochan wakes up with Alice close to him, greeting him good morning and bringing him water to wash his face with. Then she presents him with breakfast she made from love, and when he tells her how he's not hungry, she reminds him how his mother always insisted that he eat 3 full meals a day and how he might fall sick and be unable to fool around with her. After hearing that, Bochan feels bad for not eating Alice's cooking, so he decides to eat, and Alice wastes no time trying to feed him. When he opens his mouth, Alice freezes and he realizes that she's staring inside his mouth, which creeps him out. She apologizes for it and offers him to see her mouth, but he tells her to let him eat by himself instead. Alice asks him why he doesn't like eating, and he reveals that ever since he was cursed, mealtime was the worst part of the day as all his family members sat far away from him. Then, Alice informs Bochan that his childhood friend, Philip, will be visiting him after a long time. Meanwhile, Bochan's family gets the news that Philip will be visiting, but the mother orders her children not to talk about Bochan. The next day, Bochan feels anxious about his reunion with Philip, asking Alice to cancel it. She tells him that she won't, as she knows how excited he actually is when she caught him practicing his greetings. When it's time to change into his tuxedo, Bochan refuses to take off his hat, saying how his curls and lazy eyes are ugly. But Alice gets close to him, saying how his hair, eyes, and lips are so lovely that she wants to kiss them. Then she presents him with his tuxedo and tells him that she will help him change. And when Bochan gets nervous, she offers to also change in front of him, but he stops her from revealing her plots. Then she helps him put on the tuxedo, carefully not touching him, and Bochan expresses to Alice how, after he got cursed, Philip was the one person who didn't avoid him, and he believes that he can become friends with him again. Alice then puts his tie on him, and he gets flustered seeing her luscious plots in front of him. He asks her not to act like that in front of Philip, saying that he doesn't want other men seeing her bare skin, and she assures him that only he gets to see her soft body. Later, Philip arrives with his men, and Bochan greets him, but when he talks about how Philip used to throw bugs at him for fun, Philip and the others get nervous and start apologizing. When Bochan gets too close, Philip's men quickly jump to protect him from Bochan, and Philip quickly makes an excuse, saying that they are just posing, but Bochan knows that they are scared of him. Then they have tea together, and realizing that Philip has a purpose of being here, Bochan asks him straight about his purpose of meeting him, and he tells Bochan that he's here to see an old friend. Philip recognizes Alice as the daughter of the head maid, and asks Bochan if they live alone, just the two of them, and Bochan informs him that they have a butler who is currently sick. Just then, Philip pulls out a cigar to smoke, but when one of his men lights up a match for him, he stumbles the table, causing the plant to fall, but Bochan catches it from falling, and when they see how the plant dies in his hand, they get scared of him. After that incident, Philip and his men hurry themselves home, but before leaving, Philip asks to go to the toilet, and Alice offers to show him the way. Being alone, Philip stops her, offering her to escape with them, and when she refuses, Philip asks her if Bochan is threatening him. Suddenly, Bochan pops up, demanding that he stop disrespecting Alice, and when he gets closer, Philip stops him with his cane, calling him a monster. Philip reveals how his mother asked him to check on him after there were talks about how Bochan's little brother would inherit their family's title. Philip warns Bochan that his family might cut him off in the future, and tells him that while he's scared of him, he also feels sad for how he turned out. After Philip left, Bochan spends his time in the park, thinking bad thoughts about how people, including Alice, will all leave him and stop loving him. Alice pops up to inform him that dinner is ready, and Bochan tells her how he always thinks bad thoughts whenever she's away from him. Bochan expresses how he doesn't feel that he has a right to love her, as he can't touch her, and give her the warmth of his body. He picks up a white rose, saying how he can't even present her the rose without it dying. But Alice takes the dead rose from his hand and informs him that presenting someone a dead white rose is telling them that they want to be with them forever. Bochan blushes hearing that, and Alice assures him that being with him is more than a present for him. But after seeing her gesture, Bochan promises himself that one day he will put a ring on her finger himself and marry her. The next morning, the butler Rob returns from his sick absence and declares that he will return to work. He apologizes to Alice for leaving all the work to her, but she assures him that she enjoyed every single second she spent with Bochan. While Rob is working, Bochan remembers and appreciates how, after he got cursed, Rob was the only butler who was willing to come with him to the mansion. With Rob back to work, Alice doesn't have anything to do, and she asks Bochan if her presence bothers him, and he tells her that her plots are disturbing him from reading. Just then, Rob shows up to serve him tea, and while Bochan is worried about his health, Rob thanks him for his worries and assures him that he will be fine. He orders Alice to divide the housework with him, and as Alice leaves with Rob, she sneaks Bochan a fan service, causing him to blush. Bochan believes that despite being old, Rob's work has not decreased, but suddenly Rob almost touches him, thinking that he's Alice. Rob explains that his eyes are getting worse, and Bochan reminds him that his old age is starting to have an effect, but Rob refuses to believe that. Bochan tries to explain how he would die by touching him, but Rob now struggles to hear what he's saying due to his bad hearing. Just then, Alice pops up, and when Rob spots her, he gets extremely close to see who it is, causing Bochan to feel jealous and Alice to feel uncomfortable. But Ron finally realizes that it's Alice. While backing away, Bochan accidentally stumbles on a vase, but Rob catches it before it falls and assures Bochan that while he is getting older, his skills will never wither away. Later, Bochan spends his time doing his favorite activity, playing piano and creating songs, as he believes that, in his condition, making music can help him make a living. Suddenly, Alice pops up close to him, scaring him, and she apologizes, saying that she couldn't help but listen to his beautiful music. Bochan tells her to act more normal, and when she gets too close to him, he orders her to focus on her job at hand so she can leave him alone. Alice does what she's ordered to do and cleans the fireplace, but being a cultured man, Bochan caves into his deepest cheek-loving desire and peeks at her. However, she catches him in the act, and Bochan tells her that she did it on purpose. So as not to disturb him, Bochan orders her to sit next to him and enjoy his music. When Bochan starts playing, Alice can imagine the moment he handed her the wilted white rose, which gives her the utmost comfort knowing that he loves her. She tells him how beautiful the song is, and Bochan admits that he created it for her and wanted her to listen to it, but was too shy to ask her. He tells her that he's going to take a nap before dinner, but as Alice is about to walk away, she tells him that she's going to kiss him goodnight. Their lips get close to each other, almost touching, but Alice pulls away, telling him that he was kidding. Meanwhile, in Bochan's family household, his sister Viola decides to skip dinner and head somewhere far away from home. The next day, Viola and her men barges into Bochan's mansion, roasting Bochan, saying how he looks ugly as usual. Seeing her makes Bochan panic, so she calls for Alice to come, and when she does, Bochan tells her to kick Viola out, but Viola refuses to leave, saying that she wants to talk with her brother. They have tea together where Viola keeps asking Alice for more sweets, and when Alice walks away, she sees Bochan looking at Alice as she walks away and calls him out for loving her. She starts giving him pointers, saying how, just like she hides her offside hairline under her bangs, he needs to hide his dark circles under his eyes. He tries covering them up with his hat, but his sister roasts him, saying that he's as ugly with or without the hat. After hours of talking, Viola goes home, saying how she will come visit again, but when she wishes Bochan good luck so he can return home, Bochan blushes, realizing that his sister is still waiting for his return. On her way out, she runs into Rob, who greets her warmly, and she blushes redder than a tomato after seeing the man she has always had a crush on. She tells him that she came to see him as well, and when Rob pampers her, Bochan sees how Viola is still weak for hot old dudes. Later, Bochan panics after finding a black cat in his mansion and begs Alice to get rid of it so it won't touch him. When Alice gets close to the cat, it accepts Alice's warmth and goes straight to making dough on her plots like any cultured cat would. They notice that the cat has a collar and wonder if it has an owner, but before they get to check, the cat sees something on Bochan that it wants, and it starts chasing Bochan around, making him squeal out of fear that it might touch him. They run past Rob and he chases the cat as well, but because of his bad eyesight, he thinks that the cat is Bochan and wonders why he's crawling. When Rob catches it, he realizes it's a cat and starts playing with it, but not knowing what's going on, he lets go of the cat again, causing Bochan to get chased around again. Then they realize that the cat wants Bochan's bolo tie and let it play with it. When they look at the cat's collar, they find a message directed to them, asking them for forgiveness, and while Alice doesn't understand, Bochan does, and he realizes that the cat was abandoned just like him. Then they feed the cat outside the house, and Bochan talks to it, saying how he knows how it feels to be abandoned. Just then, other cats pop up to join it, and Rob tells Bochan that the cat has already found its new family. They tell Bochan that the tea is ready, and when Bochan leaves the cat, he looks back at it, happy knowing that the cat has found its home. Later, Alice finds Bochan spending his time alone at the ballroom, and he informs her that while the ballroom is now empty, his grandfather, who's a bad dancer, used to dance with Alice's mother for practice. They see that as fate that they get to be there just the two of them, and when Bochan tries to cowardly ask Alice to dance, she rejects him, asking him to ask her properly. After gathering his bravery, Bochan asks Alice to dance with him, and she accepts his invitation. Without touching each other directly, they dance together, just the two of them, in the dark ballroom, and they dance passionately through the night. Afterward, they enjoy the moon shining on them, and Bochan asks Alice what she thinks of him. She initially says how Bochan is an important person, but Bochan asks her what she thinks of him as a man. When Alice says how much she loves him, so much that not enough words can express it, Bo-chan feels happy and they head to dinner. The next morning, when Bo-chan wakes up, Alice greets him and gets extremely close due to how excited she is. Then they play billiards together, with the loser having to follow whatever the winner asks of them. And while Bo-chan is an expert in the game, Alice is not, as she has never played before. She purposefully positions herself to make Bo-chan flustered, but when it's time for her to play, she misses, leaving it open for Bo-chan to win. However, just as he's about to put it in, Alice whispers in his ear telling him not to enter the wrong hole, which causes his mind to wander and he misses his shot. With ease, Alice puts the ball in, winning the game, and Bo-chan has to do whatever she tells him. He gets both nervous and excited, thinking of all the plotful things that Alice can ask of him. But to his disappointment, Alice simply asks him to go on a date with her and travel around the town. During tea time, she explains that there will be a costume party where Bo-chan can wear a thick costume to prevent people from touching him. And while Bo-chan is nervous being around a lot of people, she gets on her knees and begs him to come with her. The next day, they pull up to the town in costumes with Bo-chan looking like he's battling the plague. But when he sees what Alice is wearing, he compliments Alice's costume, calling her cute, which she appreciates. Just then, Bo-chan almost runs into someone, and while Alice is glad that the costume is thick enough to avoid touches, Bo-chan tells her that it's heavy. She offers that they just cancel the date and go home, but Bo-chan refuses to do so, saying that he wants to fulfill her request, which she's happy about. Moments later, while they're walking, Bo-chan runs into more people, and when Alice is not looking, he gets dragged away, causing the two of them to split up. During Alice's search for Bo-chan, a masked woman stops her, asking if she's Sharon, and Alice tells the masked woman that she is not and that Sharon is her mother. The masked girl recognizes Alice as Sharon's daughter, and before Alice gets to find out who she is, the masked girl walks away. Meanwhile, Bo-chan is lost in the city, and a stupid little boy clings to him, who is also lost and looking for his stupid mommy. Bo-chan doesn't know what to do, but when he sees a piano, he knows that music can cheer the stupid little boy up, so he plays it. When Bo-chan starts cooking with his music, the little boy and the whole town take notice of him, and they all dance and celebrate the presence of great music in the city. They laugh, dance, and drink, and moments later, the stupid little boy reunites with his stupid, ugly mommy, so Bo-chan decides to stop playing the piano. Suddenly, Alice shows up, saying that she has found him. Then, she asks him again if they should go home, and to her surprise, Bo-chan tells her that he wants to spend more time in the town with her. Later, Bo-chan spots a store that sells a mask that looks like him, and while they are amused by it, the storekeeper tells him that the store is inspired by the Death Incarnate's face, who lived in a mansion near them. They walk away, and while eating ice cream to cheer himself up, Bo-chan expresses how he's not a monster, but just a guy who got cursed. With how tasty the ice cream is, he offers Alice a taste, but when she licks it, he tells her to stop licking things in a way that is provocative. Then, Alice suggests that they get on top of the clock tower, saying how no one is there, and once they reach the top, Bo-chan gets excited by the view he's seeing. Alice talks about the urban story of the princess and the moon, which is the story about the prince who was taken by the witch and was put on the moon, far away from the princess. However, the princess blew a kiss to the moon every night to make sure their love stays alive, and Bo-chan believes that the prince blows a kiss back at her from the moon. Hearing that story makes Bo-chan sad, and when asked why, he expresses how unlike that story, he feels far away from Alice even though he's so close to her. Due to his love for her, he wants to touch her badly on this date. Alice assures him that being close to him already makes her happy, and she wishes to always be near him in the future. That night, Bo-chan gets a note from Alice telling him to come to her room if she struggles to sleep, so he goes there, hoping for some snoo-snoo. When he calls out for her, she tells him to come in, but when he does, she gets her plots out, causing Bo-chan to get flustered, and she explains that she always sleeps with nothing on. After she put on her clothes, Bo-chan came into her room, which smelled amazing. She tells him that she will be easing his tension for the night, and being excited, Bo-chan quickly sits down, not knowing what to expect. On Alice's table, Bo-chan finds her undies there, and when Alice serves him tea, he starts tweaking, wondering if she's wearing her undies. She then orders him to get on her bed, telling him to lie down, and just as she's about to get closer to his face, she stops, telling him to go to sleep. Bo-chan is confused about what's going on, hoping for something more, and Alice tells him that she only wanted to help him sleep, as her note said. While disappointed, Bo-chan goes to sleep, but before he loses consciousness, he asks her to come with him the next day, saying that he has something to show her. The next night, Bo-chan takes Alice on a boat to show her the meteor shower that happens once a decade, and reveals that he once saw it 10 years ago and wanted to see it again, with her by his side. Alice feels happy that she gets to have this moment with him, and he tells her how he wants to tell her his feelings properly this time, and not brush over it like usual. When the meteor shower starts, Alice keeps looking at Bo-chan, and when asked why, she tells him that she enjoys watching him more. Suddenly, his hat flies off, and when Alice hurries to save it, she's about to fall, and due to his curse, Bo-chan can't save her, and lets her fall into the water. He apologizes for getting her wet and tries to offer his hand but quickly pulls away, knowing she can't touch her. However, Alice demands that he kiss her, saying how unlike the princess who's unable to kiss a prince, she wants to kiss him and die by his kiss. While he hesitates, Alice doesn't, which pushes Bo-chan to kiss her, but as their lips are about to touch, Bo-chan stops himself, saying he can't do it. Just then, Alice tips the boat over, saying that Bochan needs to exercise. After getting on land, Alice asks him what he wanted to tell her, but her refuses to say it, knowing that the moment is gone. Back home, they warm themselves in front of the fireplace, and when Alice invites him to go to another meteor shower in 10 years' time, Bochan feels happy that she wants to stay with him for another decade. The next day, Bochan starts regretting rejecting Alice's kiss, thinking that she might be upset with him. Then, when Alice and Rob show up, Alice acts differently around Bochan, refusing to look at him or get close to him. He tries getting her to treat him like usual, where she tempts him and teases him, but despite his best efforts, Alice refuses to do anything with him and keeps her distance. Bochan gets depressed, wondering where the usual plotful Alice went, and asks himself if he made any mistake towards her. Rob asks him what's wrong, and Bochan tells him how he misses the old Alice who usually activates fan services around him. Just then, Bochan notices how Alice is moving funny and orders Rob to touch her, and when he does, they realize that Alice has a fever. Bochan takes Alice to her room, apologizing for getting her wet on the boat trip, but she informs him that the reason she got sick was because she spent the whole night watching him sleep while in the cold, which creeps Bochan out. She asks him to just leave her, but he refuses to do so, saying that he wants to stay by her side. When he puts a blanket on her lap, she hugs it tight, imagining it was him, and Bochan gets flustered. The next day, it starts snowing, and with Alice healthy, she gets back with teasing Bochan, offering him to warm his hands in between her plots, but he refuses, saying that she'll die. As Bochan is about to sleep, Alice puts a scarf around his neck to keep him warm, and when he realizes that it's new, she reveals that she knitted it herself for him. She asks him they have some fun in the snow the next day, and with the scarf around him, Bochan promises her that he will do it. The next morning, Bochan and Alice step out onto the snow, and not only is Bochan excited about the snow around him, but he's also excited with how cute Alice looks. He throws a little bit of snow at her, and when it melts, he sees it melt between her plots, causing her to get flustered. Just then, Rob pops up, and when asked why he's there, he tells them that he wants to join them. He wastes no time making a snowman out of nothing, and wanting to help, Bochan encourages Alice that they help him by rolling some snowballs. While rolling, Alice teases him, saying things about the snowball seductively. She tells him to take a break while they finish the snowman, but when Alice is not looking, Bochan yeets a snowball at her. However, she dodges like Neo from the Matrix, and just like a machine gun, she shoots snowballs at a rapid rate at Bochan, starting a snowball fight between the two. Rob feels happy seeing Bochan smiling, but when they throw a snowball at him, he has no choice but to join the snowball fight. After a whole day of snow fun, Alice asks Bochan to hand her the scarf so she can wash it, but he refuses to let it go and runs away. Just then, she notices that her earring, one that her mother gave her, is gone, and it's somewhere in the snow. When she tries to go outside, she realizes she can't do anything due to how cold it is, but Bochan sees her and decides to do something about it. He goes out to find the earring, shoveling pounds and pounds of snow, but due to the extreme cold, Bochan collapses. Meanwhile, a white bat flies past the mansion, looking for food, and it turns itself into its true form, Cuff the Witch. She finds Bochan lying in the snow, and when Bochan wakes up, she tries to help him up, but Bochan tells her about his curse and how she will die from touching him. He explains how he's looking for his maid's earrings, and when she hears that, Cuff praises him for caring so much about his maids. She suggests that he call it quits, but he refuses to, expressing how he wants to see Alice's happy face. However, he collapses before finding the earring, but after seeing his powerful determination, using her fire magic, she helps him find the earring. When he wakes up, he's confused about where the snow went, and she shows him the earring that he's been looking for. Moments later, Bochan brings Cuff inside the mansion for some food, and when they run into Alice, Bochan introduces them to each other and explains to Alice how Cuff saved her. Alice scolds him for going out, but he hands her the earring her mother gave her. Just then, Cuff jumps in between them and drags Alice away, asking her to let her take a bath. After a while, Bochan wonders what's taking the girls so long, and imagines them doing the dirty in the bathroom, which makes him want to join them. He starts singing and dancing joyfully about how he wishes to be between them in the ultimate plot progression. Suddenly, the two girls pop up, and Cuff thanks them for the shower. Then, they serve Cuff dinner as a gift for saving Bochan, but when Bochan asks her for information about witches, Cuff refuses to say anything, not wanting to talk about her kind. However, when Alice serves her dessert, Cuff folds to the bribe and decides to spill everything out to Bochan. She reveals that she doesn't know the witch who cursed him, and explains that not all witches are friends with each other. She reveals that witches like her are being hunted by human witch hunters, who didn't care who they hunted, and to Bochan's surprise, Cuff confesses that her father was a human who was also hunted by the witch hunters who didn't care that he was a human being. She expresses how, because she is half human, half witch, she was shunned by both sides, but she was okay because she had her friend with her, who is a guy. It reminds Bochan of when Philip called him a monster, and he's able to relate to what Cuff is feeling. He thanks her for saving him, even though he's a human, and Cuff tells him that the reason she saved her was because of his determination. Just then, Alice pops in with Cuff's robe that she fixed, and recalling her confrontation with the mysterious robed woman, Alice asks Cuff if all witches wear robes. Cuff states that they do, and that it's rare for humans to wear a robe. Then, Bochan asks Cuff if she knows anything about how to stop his curse, but she tells him that her friend once told her that she's dumb, and that her friend was the one she relied on the most. After hearing that, Bochan points out how Cuff is fond of her guy friend, and that causes Cuff to get flustered. But because she doesn't know what to do with that feeling, she goes to the window and flies away. The next day, Alice visits the snowman they built that looks like Bochan, and she recalls how in the past when Alice was bullied by other kids, Bochan was the one who cheered her up and took her side. Bochan pops up carrying an umbrella to pick her up, and when he catches her staring at her, he realizes how much she wants him to hold her, but he can't. The next morning, while drinking tea, Bochan notices how Alice wears the same maid costume every day and offers to get her a new one. However, he assures him that she changes all the time, but to Bochan's surprise, she reveals that it's her inner plot covers. Later, Viola comes to visit the mansion, and when she runs into Rob, she gets flustered heavily, not knowing how to act correctly. Bochan reminds Viola that Rob is an old prune, but she chooses to accept that she has fallen for him. Bochan also reminds him that Rob is a servant, but Viola tells him to shut his mouth and reminds him of him and Alice. Just then, Alice shows up with snacks, and while they are enjoying them, Viola gets curious about what kind of girl Alice is. She scolds Alice, telling her that while her plots are juicy, she's lacking a juicier charm compared to her usual behavior. Viola orders Bochan to look away while she teaches Alice her charm method, showing her the way to look like a cutesy girl. When Alice manages to learn it, she showcases her cutesy face to Bochan, causing him to almost spill his milk while hers are already spilling. Just then, Rob pops up to inform Viola that it's time for her to go home, but before leaving, Bochan suggests to her that she should use the cutesy face on Rob as well. Viola agrees to his suggestion, but when she tries to do it, she speaks like a cow on fentanyl, not being able to keep her composure in front of Rob. The next day, Viola visits again and gets flustered again when she runs into Rob, who to her is the hottest grandpa alive. Rob takes him to the kitchen to meet Bochan, who is in the middle of helping Alice cook. Viola sees a chance to show Rob that she's wifey material through her cooking, so she jumps in, telling Alice how she wants to help her cook. Bochan sees her goal and sets Viola up with Rob to make the bread, but Viola calls him a creep for trying that, even though he is trying to help. While Rob shapes the dough, Viola keeps squealing happy noises, seeing how adorable Rob is when making bread. He creates a kitty-shaped bread, and Viola gets flustered by his craftsmanship, but she takes it a step further, saying how it's like they're newlyweds. She expresses how lucky Bochan is to have both Alice and Rob by his side, wishing that he quickly returns so he can retain the family's title, and Rob thanks Viola for not only thinking highly of him, but also for caring so much about Bochan. Later, just as Viola is about to go home, Ron chases her down and hands her a basket filled with their fresh bread and tells her to come anytime. When Viola opens it, she finds the kitty-shaped bread she helped make and enjoys it fully. The next day, Bochan accompanies Alice ice skating and gives him a peek of fan service every time she passes. Just then, a talking bird pops up beside him, yapping about how he wants to eat some of Alice's seafood, and while Bochan initially thinks that he's on cloud 9 seeing a talking bird, the bird asks him if he has seen someone who looks lost. Bochan realizes that the bird is the friend Cuff was talking about, and he's also looking for Cuff. Alice slides to Bochan, saying how she met someone surprising, but before she gets to talk properly, the bird reveals himself to be Zine, who is a witch. He tries rizzing Alice up, but Bochan quickly pushes him back, not letting his precious baby mama get taken by a stupid-looking knobhead. Zane tries to explain how he's thirsty for a girl's cuteness, especially after how Cuff always blew him off, and he reveals that he is a cultured man who likes melons. He accuses Bochan of being a melon man as well, but when Bochan states that he's a thighs man, Alice quickly takes notes. Frustrated, Zane wonders where Cuff has gone, worrying that she might not survive, but to the boys' surprise, Alice reveals that Cuff has been in the middle of her fan service this whole time, warming herself up after Alice found her drowning in the frozen lake. Afterward, while Alice takes a break, the others try ice skating, and while Zane is teaching Cuff, he tells her that she should be more like Alice, who is as gracious as a swan, unlike her who's like a gorilla, but Cuff gets pissed and burns his face. Seeing their interaction makes Bochan jealous, also wanting to hold Alice's hands, but when Alice pops up offering her hands, he rejects, not wanting her to die. Just then, Bochan slips, but when he tells her that he's having fun, she tells him that she's happy that he's happy. Meanwhile, Cuff holds on to Zane from the back, asking him to walk, and when he does, she enjoys skating while holding on to him. She pulls Alice to skate with them, but Alice asks Bochan for his hand so he can join too, and he grabs onto her sleeves so he can get dragged along as well. Later, before the witches leave, they inform Bochan that they have decided to invite him to the witches' Sabbath so he can investigate himself to find the witch who cursed him. But Alice tells Bochan that she wants to come with them to find out the mysterious girl she met in the town. When Bochan hesitates to agree, Alice uses her cutesy face to convince Bochan, which works. That night, Viola visits Alice in her room and is shocked to see how much plot she has. She hangs out with Alice and asks her about the dead rose on her table, and Alice tells her that it's her most prized possession. After Alice serves her tea, Viola snuggles onto her, saying how it's like they're having their own girls' party. Alice asks what that is, and Viola explains how a girls' party is when girls talk about things only girls can hear. Viola confesses that she has a crush on Rob, and while that surprises Alice, she believes that Rob would be perfect for Viola. Then, Viola asks Alice who she has a crush on, and when Alice tells her that she has feelings for a Prince Charming, Viola laughs, thinking that her brother's feelings are unanswered, not knowing that Bochan is Alice's Prince Charming. After hours of talking, Viola expresses how she always wanted a big sister after her mother always paid all her attention to her brothers. Suddenly, Bochan pops up looking for Viola, but Alice tells him that Alice is asleep and that Bochan should give Viola more praise and attention when she wakes up. The next day, during tea time, Bochan tells Alice that her uniform is bothering him, and while she tries to show off her snoo-snoo, he tells her that it's because her shoulders are too exposed. Alice tries out different outfits, but when Bochan doesn't like any of them, Alice states that she will start going commando, and Bochan quickly stops her idea. Later, they go to the abandoned conservatory, and Bochan offers to help Alice clean it up so it can be used as a reading room. But when he looks back, Alice pulls cleaning tools out of her plot bags. Using his curse, Bochan starts withering the plants around him. But as he does so, he reflects on how the witch placed certain rules on the curse, which is that anything that comes into direct contact with him will die. but touching him through thick clothes won't have any effect, and it was clear to Bochan that the witch wanted to control him. Just then, he notices Alice admiring the beautiful flowers there, but despite their beauty, she tells Bochan to use his curse to wither them so she can clean them. However, after seeing how much she liked the flowers, Bochan made a flower crown out of the flowers for Alice, and she thanks him for it, stating that it's another treasure that she will keep dearly. After seeing her happy, Bochan is determined to find the witch and break the curse, hoping to one day return home to his mother so they can dine together again as a family. Meanwhile, Viola is having dinner with the others, and she gets scolded by her mother for being unladylike, but Viola just brushes her off. Back with Bochan, he's walking around the mansion when he hears Alice struggling against someone, but when he gets to her, he finds her in her bathrobe. She explains that the cat stole her favorite gown while she was in the bath, and Bochan decides to help get it back. However, Alice decides to join him on his search, refusing to stay still. But because of how much of a snack she looks, Bochan puts his blazer on her. She starts sniffing on it, saying how it smells like him, and Bochan urges her to move. During their search, Bochan can't help but stare at her plumps, and she offers him to touch them. But in that moment, they find the cat and Alice's gown. They see that the gown is all chewed up, believing that the cat wanted to bring it to its nest. And while Bochan suggests that Alice should get a new one, she refuses, saying that it's the same gown Bochan complimented her in. In the end, she lets the cat have the gown, and when she tries to give Bochan his blazer back, he refuses and says his goodnights. However, she peeks out back at him, telling him goodnight while smelling his blazer. The next night, the blood moon shines on the mansion, and Cuff and Zoin pop up to take Bochan at the witch's sabbath. They find Bochan in the middle of packing, and Cuff burns his baggage, saying that he doesn't need to bring anything. Alice asks them if she can come, and while Bochan is worried about the danger, they casually say that she can. Cuff hands them a pair of robes and informs them that they will cover up their human smell. After they wear them, Rob pops up, worried for their safety, and Bochan assures him that with Alice beside him, they will come home safely. Zane opens up a portal from a mirror, and when they enter it, they get teleported to another world, filled with witches who are there for the Sabbath. When Bochan looks around, he feels scared seeing all the witches around him, realizing that they're not like Cuff and Zane. Just then, a ball rolls on his feet, and a witch asks him to throw it back, but when he looks at it, he malfunctions when he sees that it's an eyeball. Then their witch leader, Daleth, pops up, making sure that all the witches are there, and Alice recognizes her as the masked woman she met in the town. When Daleth sees Cuff and Zane, she asks who the other two are, and while Zane tells Cuff to lie by saying that they are his siblings, Cuff declares that Bochan and Alice are their children, which surprises everyone and annoys Zane. Then, Daleth starts the meeting, and to Bochan's surprise, the meeting is chill with the witches talking about trivial stuff. Not long after, the meeting is finished, and Bochan still hasn't found any clues about the witch who cursed him. The other witches are in shock to hear that Zane had kids with Cuff, who is half human, which disgusts them. But Zane holds Cuff close and demands that the other witches apologize, telling them to never disrespect Cuff in front of him. Meanwhile, Daleth recognizes Alice under her robe, surprising her that Alice managed to win over Cuff and Zane. Alice asks Daleth if her mother has any relations with the witches, but Daleth informs her that her mother is only a slight acquaintance. When Bochan joins the talk, Daleth tells him that she recognizes him as the boy who got cursed. But to his disappointment, Daleth tells him that the witch who cursed him is dead, and the curse put on him is so powerful that even Daleth doesn't know how to break it. She suggests that they give up in trying to break the curse, and Daleth burns Bochan's robe, revealing to everyone that he's a human. It turns all the witches hostile against them, and they quickly run away. One witch almost captures Ace with her plant magic, but with his curse, Bochan touches it, causing it to die, which surprises the witch. Zine quickly opens the portal, and with Cuff's fire magic, they push back the witch and escape, making Zine and Cuff an enemy of the other witches. Bochan apologizes to Zine and Cuff for what happened, but Zine laughs, saying that witches are used to fighting each other, and that now they don't have to attend the Sabbath for a while. Zine tries rizzing up Alice, saying how he will always protect her, but Alice is more amazed at Bochan, praising him for saving her against a witch. Cuff asks them if they found any clues, and while they didn't find any, Bochan is glad that he at least now understands his situation. He asks Cuff why she has been helping him, and she expresses how she wanted to become friends with him after she saw his determination in the snow. Bochan tells the witches that he wishes to be friends with them as well, and they leave the house, promising to visit again, but as friends. Bochan feels fired up in finding a way to break his curse, and Alice tells him how lonely it is being unable to touch the ones they love. She offers him to touch her plots, but he refuses to do it, not wanting her to die and for himself to malfunction. The next morning, Bochan makes a suggestion to Alice to start wearing white clothes, saying how they're different from her usual black clothes. But when he starts imagining her in white wedding dresses, he folds heavy. Back in the mansion, Alice reveals that she has bought a magic pot that once belonged to a witch, and inside it is a recipe book full of mysteries. She prepares all the ingredients following the book, and to activate the magic pot, she wakes it up by rizzing it up, saying how cute the pot is. The pot gets flustered, which heats itself up and boils the water. Alice adds the ingredients into the pot, starting from a lizard's tail to the one piece, which creates a purple soup. While Alice is stirring, Bochan stares at the magic pot, and it gets flustered, calling Bochan a creep for staring too long. She then showcases other things the pot can do, and by telling it that it's as hot as Luffy recaps viewers, it creates a smokescreen. Then, she orders Bochan to stir the pot, telling him to think of happy things while doing it. But while he is stirring, all he can think of is Alice wanting to progress the plot with him. After they finish, Alice reveals that what they have just created is a potion that breaks a witch's curse, and Alice grabs a spoonful of it for Bochan to drink. When he does drink it, it tastes as horrible as my ex's cooking. But to their disappointment, the curse is still inside Bochan as a flower dies when Bochan touches it. However, despite the failure, Bochan thanks Alice for her attempts, saying how it lifts up his spirit to find more ways to break the curse. With the magic pot being useless, they decide to gift it to Rob, and when the magic pot sees Rob, it gets flustered to know that such a gentleman will be owning it, and Rob thanks them for the gift. However, Viola pops up, feeling jealous of the magic pot, and she chases it down, wanting to break it. Meanwhile, Alice is in the library when she finds a special music sheet. She hands it to Bochan, explaining that the music sheet was created by a composer named McFarlane, and that if Bochan can play the music sheet perfectly, it will break his curse. Then, when Bochan starts playing the piano, a midget composer pops up in front of him, and he starts talking to Bochan, saying how he's the only one who can see him. However, when McFarlane spots Alice, he starts drooling, saying how it's been centuries since he saw a woman so gorgeous. He purposefully lifts up Alice's skirt, making her think it was the wind, which causes Bochan to lose his focus after seeing Alice's snoo-snoo. McFarlane continues to bother Alice, doing things that will send him to the same cell as Diddy, but to his surprise, when McFarlane tries to kiss her, Alice pokes his eyes. He asks Alice if she can see him, but while she tells him that she couldn't, she easily responds to him like she can. Bochan fully focuses on the one thing he's good at, playing the piano, trying his best to play the music sheet perfectly, wanting to break the curse that will open a future for him and Alice together. When he finishes playing, the music sheet alongside McFarlane disappears, and he thanks Bochan for breaking his curse. But Bochan is annoyed that it wasn't his curse that was broken. The next morning, Bochan comes to pick up Alice in her room, and when she presents herself in her lingerie, Bochan quickly orders her to get dressed. It makes him wonder if Alice sees him as a guy, and he recalls how Violet taught him about the suspension bridge effect, which was to trick someone's heart to beat love for them by scaring them. Bochan decides to try it out, and when Alice finishes dressing up, he tries to scare her, but when he realizes that she's not scared, he knows that he needs to try harder. Later, Bochan tries telling Alice a scary story about a man named Diddy, but to his disappointment, Alice is not scared at all, saying that she has a counter for the baby oil. Then, Bochan tries to show her a scary painting of a bloody woman he once saw, but when he can't find it, to his surprise, the painting is already on the wall, which confuses him. However, he still tries to scare Alice, but she is still not scared, and even offers Bochan to listen to her chest for heartbeats, which he refuses to do. It frustrates Bochan how Alice's heart is not pounding, but she informs him that her heart is always pounding fast whenever she's with him, which Bochan is glad to hear. When Alice walks away, Rob asks her if she was the one who put the picture on the wall, but while it was her, she doesn't want Bochan to know, so she can scare him. Meanwhile, Bochan is staring deeper into the painting, slowly drowning himself in fear, but while backing off, he accidentally breaks a vase behind him. When he tries to touch it, Rob firmly stops him, saying that the plant has been with the mansion since its first generation. Rob aggressively steps inside while carrying an axe, and still being scared, Bochan runs away. Later, Alice finds Bochan hiding inside a cupboard, and he explains how terrifying it is when Rob gets angry, so Alice decides to join him and hide inside the cupboard. Just then, Rob pops up, and while they stay quiet, Alice gets closer, saying that she will protect him. However, when Rob walks away, Bochan quickly jumps out, scolding Alice for almost touching him, which she did on purpose. He starts thinking of the next place to hide, and while Alice suggests that he hide under her skirt, he wants to but can't. Suddenly, Rob pops up and starts approaching him, but Bochan acts quickly, and taking advantage of Rob's age, he pretends to sound like Alice, which Rob believes. Then, the two of them hide under Bochan's bed, and Alice tells Bochan how her heart is pounding like crazy, which is exactly what Bochan wanted. She slowly pushes her finger to his hand, wanting to touch him, but before she gets to do it, Rob finds them, telling them of an emergency. He shows them jewelries he found in the broken vase, and explains that years ago previous housemaids tried stealing Bochan's mother's jewelries, but because they hid it inside the vase, they never retrieved it. The maids praise Bochan for finding the lost jewelries, and while Bochan takes the credit, Rob tells Bochan that they have to talk about him breaking the vase, and Bochan realizes that he's getting scolded by Rob later. Later, Bochan wakes up in a dream, and he finds Alice there with him. She reveals that moments before, they opened a curse-breaking book, and from it, a spirit pops up, promising to break the curse if they could capture the white rabbit. Being in a dream, Alice takes his hand and puts them on her plots, but Bochan gets depressed after realizing he can't feel anything. Suddenly, the white rabbit passes by, and they chase it. But during their chase, the two of them have fun together, doing things they can't do in the real world. After 7 hours, Alice informs Bochan that they will soon wake up, but while holding hands, Alice suggests that they kiss before the dream is over. Bochan wastes no time and gets his lips close to hers, but before they connect, he wakes up before the kiss happens, and the spirit gets angry for their failure in catching the white rabbit, ordering them to never summon her again. However, when Bochan sees Alice still asleep, he goes back to sleep, hoping he can join her dream again. Days later, with Rob's tutoring, Cuff visits the mansion to learn how to write and read, just so she can impress Zane and get compliments from him, hoping he'll see her as his future baby mama. Bochan asks her where Zane is, and Cuff informs him that since they fought the other witches, Zane has been working at the circus to make money, considering how the circus doesn't care that he looks like a freak. Meanwhile, at Bochan's family home, Walter, who's a handsome wimp, confronts Viola for visiting Bochan often. And while Viola believes that it's none of Walter's business, he reminds her that it is his business since he will soon be the new head of the family. However, Viola reminds him that he's the second-born under Bochan, which hurts him, and that if Bochan manages to break the curse, Bochan will reclaim his throne. Walter admits that he never liked Bochan, and how their mother puts her hope in him of breaking the curse, which made him feel inadequate. He desperately asks Viola why she always wanted to visit Bochan, wondering if she has a soft spot for him, and she leaves him, saying that she doesn't pick a side. At lunch, when asked, Walter lies to her mother, saying that Viola went to her friend's house instead of the truth. But deep in his heart, Walter intends to show everyone that he's better than Bochan. Then, when Viola goes to Bochan's mansion, she runs into Cuff, who introduces herself to Viola as a circus performer. However, Viola doesn't believe her words and thinks that she's a burglar who wants to steal, so she tries tackling Cuff down, but because of her thick plot armor, Viola bounces off her. While Viola is hurt by how soft and big her plot armor is, Cuff thinks that she only wants to play, so she offers her hand for Viola to stand up. Viola sees another chance and tackles Cuff again, but still thinking that they are playing, Cuff plays with her, which annoys Viola. Then Viola manages to tie down Cuff on the floor, saying that she won't let her go, but Cuff simply doesn't care and tells her that she's going to sleep. Viola doesn't understand why she's so calm, but Cuff tells her that she knows that Bochan is her brother, given how similar the two of them are. Viola doesn't like to be compared to Bochan, but Cuff points out how Bochan is a good guy and asks Viola if she likes her own brother as a person. While flustered, Viola is about to answer when Bochan and the others pop up, but when they see the position the two girls are in, they quickly close the door, which scares Viola, not wanting Rob to get the wrong idea. After fixing the misunderstanding, Viola apologizes to Cuff for thinking that she's a burglar. Just then, Rob takes her hair and cleans the specks of dust off it, but Viola gets folded and runs to the window, screaming that her dreams have come true. That night, Bochan plays chess with Alice, and she teases him during it, asking him to take it easy on her, which gets him to fold. While looking at the snow outside, Alice recalls the first time she arrived at the mansion, which became their reunion. Bochan was a mess after getting cursed, holding up in his room, refusing to come out of his room. When Rob brought Alice to him, she tried to make him remember how they were childhood friends, but Bochan refused to open up, stating that he didn't know who she was. However, she refused to give up on him, telling him how she moved to her aunt's house after her mother died to make him remember, but he refused to remember. Before she left the room, Alice expressed how she still remembered the gentle look on Bochan's eyes, and when she left the room, Bochan was frustrated, cooped up in his room, begging to be left alone. Then, Rob took Alice to the abandoned shack, per Alice's request, and he told her how she should take it easy on Bochan and welcomed her into the mansion. The next morning, Bochan confronted Alice in her maid uniform, telling her that it was too revealing, but she teased him with her plots, causing him to fold to her fan service. He told her that he hated her and not to follow him. However, she peeked at him trying to play the piano and saw how he failed to play it. She brought his dinner to the room, and when he rejected it, she asked him if he hated her. He expressed how he felt like he deserved not to live with his curse, and that she should find someone more meaningful to serve. But she brushed off his comments and complimented how he looked before leaving. Later, Alice talked with Rob, and while he felt pity for her situation, especially after losing her mother, she told Rob that compared to what Bochan is facing, her life is way better. Just then, Bochan popped up, demanding that Alice come with her, and he took her to his messy room, ordering him to clean it in 3 days or she would be fired. He left her in the dark, messy room by herself, having to clean what seemed to be an impossible mission. But when Alice remembered how warm Bochan was in the past, she got the motivation to get the job done. It surprised Bochan to see that Alice cleaned his room in one night, and in desperation he told her to leave, stating that it was for her own good. She sat down next to him, telling him that she would like to be by his side, and when he asked how long she would stay, she told him until his tears stopped, which surprised him. Because Alice refused to leave, Bochan decided to leave by himself and face the snowstorm, not caring about his life. He remembered when the witch promised to make him unlovable, and deep in his heart, Bochan wished that he had the chance to love someone. Suddenly, he slipped and fell into the snow, but instead of getting back up, he decided to just stay in the cold, hoping that he would freeze and die. Bochan suddenly remembered who Alice was and now wished that he could meet her again. It's as if the gods answered his prayers as Alice popped up beside him, saving him from death. He told her to let him die, but she dumped snow on his face, telling him not to waste his life. She begged him to think about the feelings of people who cared for him, and he realized then she cared for him, and he wanted to live a life where she was in it. She offered him to get up, and Bochan accepted her, wanting to see a future where he could be happy with her. While they were warming themselves up, Rob was relieved to see them okay, and he asked them if they were now getting along. When Bochan looked at Alice, he admitted to her and Rob that he liked her. Back in the present, Alice defeats Bochan at chess after he gets distracted, and he tells her that it's impossible not to get distracted with someone as cute as her. Days later, Viola asks Bochan and Alice what she should gift Rob for Christmas, and while Bochan suggests glasses due to his age, Alice suggests a handkerchief, which Viola thinks is a great idea, so she hurries to get some. Later, while dressing up, Alice informs Bochan that, with Christmas approaching, they will be having a small party at the mansion, and while Bochan is insecure with what he's wearing, Alice shows him her snoo-snoo, to show him that she comes prepared for anything during Christmas Eve. Meanwhile, Viola is getting scolded by her mother for never being home, not knowing where she went. She asks Viola to be with her family during Christmas, and she agrees. But when the mother coldly scolds her for acting childish, she says sorry and changes her energy. She decides to leave for Bochan's mansion anyway, not caring what her stupid mom says, but unbeknownst to her, Walter knows about her plans. He secretly pretends to be the carriage driver who takes Viola to the mansion, wanting to see his cursed brother so he could finally prove himself that he is the rightful heir to the family name. Meanwhile, Bochan and Alice discuss what they should have for their Christmas party, and when Alice mentions Santa Claus, Bochan imagines her wearing a Santa's outfit, offering him cardio-based spicy presents. Just then, Cuff and Zane pop up carrying a Christmas tree, and when Zane tries to riz up Alice, Cuff smacks him, and he ends up on the floor. Suddenly, Cuff expresses her enthusiasm for meeting Santa, and they realize that despite being a witch, Cuff believes that Santa exists. Then, while the girls decorate the tree, the boys decorate the room, and Zane can't help but look at the plots on Alice, but Bochan tells him to knock it off. Zane changes his focus to Cuff, and he talks about how, despite being useless in decorating, Cuff is actually cute with plots to back it up. Bochan encourages Zane to tell her straight, but he refuses to do it, not wanting to ruin their friendship. Just then, Zane suggests that they play a prank on the girls, wrapping Alice in a shiny ribbon like she's the present. And when Bochan imagines it, he gets tempted. But before they get to do it, Zane gets burned by Cuff, who heard the whole thing. After they finish decorating the Christmas tree, Cuff quickly wakes up Zane, who is sleeping, wanting to show him her hard work paying off, and remembering what Bochan told him, Zane caresses Cuff's head, telling her that the tree is as pretty as her. However, to his disappointment, he realizes that Cuff fell asleep standing, not hearing what he told her. So he put her down to sleep on the couch, but unbeknownst to him, Cuff isn't actually asleep and heard the whole thing. That night, Viola arrives at the mansion and hurries inside to give Rob her present. But when Walter steps down from the carriage, he finds that Viola dropped her present and thinks that she wanted to give it to Bochan, as she thinks he's better than Walter. He sneaks inside like prime James Bond, looking around the mansion, ensuring that no one catches him, but it confuses him when he finds a random Santa Claus outfit, so he puts it on, wanting to know what being Santa feels like. Suddenly, Cuff pops up, and because Walter is wearing a Santa Claus outfit, she thinks that Walter is Santa Claus, and she gets excited by him. Not wanting to get caught, Walter gives Cuff the present Viola prepared for Rob, which makes Cuff happy, and Walter quickly tries to walk away, but Cuff persistently follows him. He tries to juke her and escape, but to his surprise, he sees that Cuff is a witch when he sees her in her bat form, and she drags him to the chimney, wanting him to continue giving out presents to the others. Meanwhile, Viola is distressed after losing her present, but when she spots Zane, she uses his bird fur as a mood booster for herself. Just then, Rob and Alice pop up, and Rob, who's acting like Santa Claus, informs them that he was supposed to be Santa Claus, but his costume disappeared. Suddenly, someone falls down from the chimney, looking darker than my future due to the ashes, and when he steps forward, it turns out to be Walter. He tries to pretend to be Santa Claus, but they see who he is, so he takes off the costume, and when he looks at Bochan, Walter declares himself as Bochan's rival. Bochan praises how Walter looks after not seeing him for years, and when he tells him how jealous he is, Walter gets annoyed, rejecting his compliments. When Walter looks around, he sees Zane, who he knows is a witch, and concludes that Bochan is not fit to be the head of the family for not being able to break his curse, even with witches like Zane by his side. Just then, Cuff pops up, and when he looks at Walter, he doesn't recognize him. Viola sees the present Cuff is holding and declares that it's hers, but Cuff informs her that Santa himself gave her that gift, which starts an argument between them. Seeing there are no issues, Rob and Alice leave to start making dinner, which leaves Walter only with Bochan while Zane is sleeping, and the two girls arguing over the present. Walter tells Bochan that he is not fit to be the heir of the family, but Bochan is still convinced that he is fit if he manages to break the curse and get accepted by their mother. Meanwhile, the girls' fight gets intense, and to convince Cuff, Viola lies by saying that the present is cursed, but to her shock, Cuff burns the present. Bochan quickly acts and extinguishes the fire and hands the present back to Viola, and Viola shyly thanks Bochan for his help. When Walter sees how Viola acts around Bochan, he challenges Bochan that whoever can break Bochan's curse first will get to be the family heir, and Bochan accepts his challenge. Walter tries to exit the room in style to look cool, but he ends up running into the Christmas tree, looking like an imbecile. Later, they start the Christmas party together, enjoying great food alongside great company, and Viola manages to give the present to Rob, which he deeply appreciates. After all the guests have left, Alice and Bochan take a walk outside, and when Alice asks for a kiss under a mistletoe, Bochan gets startled and falls into the snow. It reminds Bochan of the time he first told Alice that he liked her and how he wanted to live with her, which surprised Alice back then. Bochan thanks Alice for being the reason why his life has so much warmth, and Alice thanks him for his kind words, accepting it as her Christmas gift, but she asks him to make her his, which makes him fold. She lies down next to him and tells him that since they will continue to live together, she wants to feel the warmth and cold he's feeling. That night, Alice dreams about the past when she was still living with Bochan's family, and her mother, Sharon, who was still alive, took Alice by her side while she worked. Alice saw how her mother was someone that her peers looked up to, and she felt proud of her. Just then, a young Bochan ran past and waved at them, and Alice waved back. Sharon asked Alice if she was looking to make Bochan her friend, and while she refused to answer, her mother knew that Alice liked Bochan. Then, Rob popped up, and while Alice was hiding behind her mother's skirt, Alice expressed how she wanted to one day be just like her, and Rob expressed how she would wait for her to work with him. Then, Sharon brought Alice back to her bedroom to rest, reminding her that she had a frail body, and when her mother hugged her and told Alice she loved her, Alice wakes up from her sleep, clinging to the beautiful dream. Meanwhile, Viola is having breakfast with the family, and after what happened on Christmas, she knows that their mother is angry because she and Walter were not there with her. In the city, after Viola told Zane to let Cuff be independent, they let Cuff go shopping by herself. But being worried, Zane follows her around, making sure everything is okay. Then, when Cuff buys some groceries at the start, everything goes well. But when it's time to pay, the vendor asks her for cash, and Cuff is confused about what is asked of her. Zane doesn't know whether he should intervene or let her be, but before he gets to make his decision, Cuff manages to understand that cash means money, so she hands the seller the payment she owed. Then she enthusiastically buys some bread from the store and cuddles with the bread due to how soft it is. Just then, a little kid tries to steal from Cuff, but being a witch, she easily catches him. The little thief tries to let go but ends up slipping towards a sharp railing. However, Cuff quickly saves him, and the thief feels guilty and apologizes. When Cuff realizes that her stuff is on the floor, she hurries to get it, but to her delight, Zahn is there to help her, revealing that he was there the whole time. Back in the mansion, Alice finds Bochan wandering alone, struggling to sleep, so she suggests that she accompany him in his sleep. In his room, she lies down next to him in his bed, and Bochan asks her to leave as soon as he's asleep. While trying to sleep, Bochan can't help but stare at the woman he loves, which freaks him out. She calls him out for it and offers to take off her plot armor, which is how she usually sleeps, but Bochan begs her not to, not wanting to do the jiggy. He imagines her as a succubus, and when Alice hears that, she starts stripping again. But Bochan stops her, reminding her that Rob can come in. She offers to progress the plot with him, but he refuses to do it, saying that it's not right for an unmarried couple to sleep together, just like what his mother used to tell him. Alice asks him what he thinks of his own mother, and Bochan expresses how he still dreams of breaking the curse and being accepted at his family's dinner table again, like before, where his family loves him. He promises that when his curse is broken, he will convince his mother to let him marry Alice even though she's a maid, and that if she declines, he will disown his family. Alice begs him not to do that, not wanting him to lose his family, and Bochan tells her that they should focus on breaking the curse first. Then Bochan goes to sleep and Alice leaves the room, but outside the door, Alice blushes redder than a tomato after what she just heard. She visits Rob to talk to him about it, and it brings Rob back to the past when Bochan slowly became more joyful because of Alice. He remembered how scared he was when he was first assigned to take care of Bochan, not knowing how to raise a child, and when Bochan grew older, they fought a lot because of Bochan's depressed state of wanting to die. Back then, Rob believed that Bochan needed someone his age to accompany him, and he remembered Alice, so he quickly found her and offered her the job. When Alice finds out that she will be meeting Bochan, she agrees to go, leaving her abusive aunt behind and moving to a new life. It made Rob happy when he eventually saw Bochan enjoying his life again, knowing that Alice was the main driving force behind it. However, it surprises Rob to now hear that Alice is conflicted over her own feelings, not wanting Bochan to leave his family even though she loves him. Rob assures Alice that her feelings are not misplaced, and that he believes that her relationship with Bochan is fate itself doing its work. Later, while walking around the mansion, Rob hears Bochan play the piano alongside Alice, and while she enjoys his performance, he encourages her to sing while he plays. Alice sings alone to the music he's playing better than Taylor Swift could ever do, but she encourages Bochan to do the same. It initially surprises him to hear his request, but he ends up singing anyway, wanting to make her happy. She joins his singing, and while following the lyrics, she asks him to marry her, and Bochan gets flustered, so he quickly calls it a night. Later, he thanks Alice for always being there for him, which gives him hope of one day breaking the curse, and he promises to one day bring her home with him. However, Alice doesn't respond to him and bids him good night before going to her room. As she's walking away, she apologizes to Bochan, saying how they could never be together as she is nothing but a lowly servant compared to him. She begs her own mother for forgiveness, but Bochan pops up offering to walk her to her room. While she rejects him, Bochan insists, saying that he wants to treat her like a lady, and when she hears that, she whispers in his ear, saying how she wants him badly. However, she walks away to her room, leaving Bochan in suspense, not knowing what she meant. Meanwhile, Viola and Walter are looking for clues regarding Bochan's curse, and while Walter is busy on the other side of the room, Viola finds a servant's logbook and takes it with her, leaving Walter trapped in a barrel. When she walks past her mother, she hides the book behind her, but she still gets scolded by her mother due to how she's dressed up, and her mother orders her to dress more ladylike. Moments later, Viola presents herself in her new dress to her mother, and she orders Viola to dress up more like this instead of her usual bum-like clothes. Viola tries to express her love for her old style, but her mother rejects it, saying that she doesn't get to make that choice. Viola vents to Alice and Bochan about what just happened, and declares that she will now live with them instead, refusing to live with the old, cruel hag any longer. While Bochan is pushing for Viola to go home, Viola offers to be one of his maids, and she begs Alice to convince Bochan so she can live freely without her mother. Just then, Rob pops up, and when he compliments what Viola is wearing, she changes her tune, accepting her new drip. That night, Viola spends the night at Alice's room with Alice and Cuff, and after changing into their PJs, they have their own girls' night where they talk about romance. Viola starts by asking Cuff who she wants to bump bellies with, but not wanting to answer, Cuff tickles her to evade the question. Then, Viola hands Alice the old servant's logbook, believing that there are clues inside to help break the curse, and Alice accepts it gratefully. Then, the three of them try to sleep on Alice's small bed together. And while Viola and Cuff are arguing over who should sleep outside, Alice giggles at them, feeling happy to have company in her bed. Unbeknownst to them, an owl is watching them from the outside, and through its eyes, Daleth is watching them closely from the wizard's realm. She calls up Zane to confront him and orders him to do something for her. Then, while Alice is reading the logbook, Rob pops up, and she shows him the book, full of the servants' writings, including Rob's own handwriting. Just then, Alice reads about one of the servants' writings, talking about two women in white nuns' clothes coming to the mansion, and realizes that the witches have visited the mansion before. But when she asks Rob about it, he tells her that he doesn't remember anything. Just then, Zane pops up, carrying a message from Daleth to them, and she wants them to be friends, which to witches means that she wants nothing to do with them after the stunt they pulled on the witches' Sabbath. Zane assures them that he and Cuff will always help them, and when he asks Alice about the book she's holding, she informs them that it's the old logbook that she plans on reading later. Later, Alice finds Zine following around in the piano room with Bochan beside him. And when Zine teases about declaring his love for Alice, Bochan puts on his big boy pants and declares that Alice belongs to him and him alone, which folds Alice sideways, who just heard what Bochan said. Then, when Alice wants to read the logbook, she realizes that it's gone, not knowing that Zane had it and was ordered by Daleth to get rid of the book, not wanting the witch's secrets to get exposed. When Zane tried to decline, Daleth threatened to delete Cuff from existence, which forced Zane to follow her order. However, just as Zane is about to burn the book, Bochan pops up asking why he was about to burn it. Zane admits the truth about his mission to dispose of it, and how he doesn't want to lose Cuff. He throws the book back to Bochan, telling him that he can't do it after all the kindness he and his servants have shown him. However, to Zane's surprise, Bochan gives the book back to Zane, telling him to burn it, as he also doesn't want anything to happen to Cuff, whom he has thought of as his own friend. After seeing just how kind Bochan is, Zane declares that he will help Bochan. He informs him that Daleth is watching them at all times, so he pretends to destroy the book with his magic, but leaves a small piece of paper in his hand. He tells Bochan that as long as the little paper is not gone, the logbook still exists, and they have to wait until Daleth stops watching them before they get to read the book again. Zine asks Bochan to act like he just lost the book, falling to his knees, begging to have the book back. Then Bochan lies to Alice, saying that he was the one who took the book because he wanted to read it, all to protect his and Zane's plan. Just then, Bochan promises to protect Alice from everything, and it reminds Alice of what her mother used to say to her. Meanwhile, even after seeing the book destroyed, Daleth still questions whether Zane has completed his mission. She opens her mask and opens a tomb that is in front of her, revealing the body of Sharon, Alice's mother. Days later, Bochan gets a letter from his mother, asking him to meet back at home, and when Alice sees Bochan feeling conflicted, she cheers him up with her plots. He expresses how it will be the first time he'll see his mother after 10 years, and while he's nervous, he wants to see her after all this time. Bochan confesses that he wanted to meet her after he broke the curse, but now that he hasn't, he can imagine how disappointed his mother is. Alice can feel how distressed Bochan is, and while she wants to console him, she stops herself and offers to come with him to the main residence. Then, the two of them head to the main residence while Rob and the witches stay back, with Rob knowing that their meeting will be a trial for Bochan. When they arrive, Viola greets Bochan's return and informs him that his mother is expecting his presence alone, so Alice informs Bochan that she will be going to meet the other maids while Bochan is left dealing with his family. They take Bochan to his mother's room, and before going in, Walter admits that he confessed to their mother about how Viola has been going to Bochan's place, but to his annoyance, Bochan doesn't express any anger towards him. Then, when Bochan steps inside, he feels his heart touched heavily when he sees his mother after 10 long years, and she coldly expresses her disappointment at Bochan for not breaking the curse yet. Bochan wants to talk to his mother about his relationship with Alice, but her mother stops him before he gets to say anything and orders him to continue his talk to her the next day. Meanwhile, Alice is getting pampered by other maids, as they can't believe that Sharon's daughter has grown so big in all the right places. While walking to her room, Alice runs into Bochan's mother, and she gets shocked seeing Alice, thinking that she's Sharon. But to her disappointment, the head maid informs her that Alice is the one present and not Sharon. The head maid informs Alice that after Sharon died, the mother of the house changed, as Sharon was her best friend. That night, before Alice goes to sleep, Bochan visits her, saying how, despite being separated for a few hours, he missed her a lot. After hearing that, Alice gets tempted, so she gets closer to kiss him. But while he wants to kiss her badly, Bochan pulls away, not wanting to lose her. When Bochan exits the room, Alice lies on her bed, wishing he spent more time with her alone. The next morning, Viola takes Bochan to the place where he was cursed, and when Bochan sees the grave, he recognizes it as the place where the witch cursed him. He remembered how he was looking for a 4-leaf clover for Alice, and suddenly the witch pressed on his back and cursed him, saying that he would never love. Then, they walk past their mother, and while Bochan greets her, she coldly scolds Viola for how she dressed, and tells Bochan that they will continue their talk during dinner, so he should not be late. Bochan tries to console Viola for how he was treated, but she assures him that she's fine, and that she was used to it. She expresses how, despite being part of a powerful family, neither she nor Walter can live freely, as their lives are controlled by their mother. That night, during dinner, Bochan joins her mother and the others, and he sits down far away from them to avoid touching them. The mother addresses how, since their father is hospitalized, they need to elect a new head of the family, and if Bochan fails to break his curse by spring, that title will be given to Walter. When the mother is about to dismiss Bochan, he asks her to talk about something else. He talks to his mother about Alice, and she expresses how Alice reminds her of Sharon, who was fun and a great friend to her. But unlike Sharon, Alice is more reserved. Bo-chan agrees to his mother's words and adds that Alice is an amazing woman. But when Bo-chan tells his mother of his intention to marry Alice, the mother laughs at his statement, saying how someone like him could never marry someone as lowly as a maid. It angers Bo-chan, and he strongly declares to his mother that the only reason he is alive and not dead in the mansion is because of Alice, who brought warmth back into his life. He declares that he will marry Alice and that not his or his siblings' lives belong to her, as they have the right to walk their own paths, despite them being royalty. Bo-chan leaves the room to go home, and the siblings follow him to walk him to his carriage. But unbeknownst to Bo-chan, his mother feels proud to see the man he has become, compared to the weak boy he once was. Then, the siblings praise Bo-chan for how he handled the situation, and after they say their goodbyes, Bo-chan and Alice head back home to the mansion. Later, they play cards with Rob, where Bo-chan informs them about how he needs to break the curse by spring. After Rob goes to sleep, Bo-chan continues to play cards with Alice, where they play the old maid, and when it's 2 cards left to choose, Alice tells Bo-chan to pick correctly as it determines his future, just like how he needs to choose between his family and marrying her. Bo-chan picks the king, which resembles picking his family, but he refuses to pick the king, and restarts the game, saying that he promises to always give his love to her, even when there are no options left. After playing cards, Bo-chan falls asleep, and when Alice puts a blanket to keep him warm, she tells Bo-chan that she loves him as well, while hoping that the future will be kinder to them. Some days later, Bo-chan is spending his evening like a dork by making a palace using cards when Alice suddenly arrives on the spot. This scares the soul out of Bo-chan, and he complains how she is always shadowing her. Alice points out that she had knocked but no one answered. She then goes on to compliment Bo-chan on being so skillful with his hands. A flustered Bo-chan tells Alice to stay a little away from him, because if she touches him even by mistake, she might die due to his curse. He adds that if she dies, he won't be able to live either, because he loves her. Alice, who pretends as if she didn't know this information, calls him cute. Upon hearing this, Bo-chan thinks that he wants to be a Chad and not have a cute, soft e-boy aesthetic. He then tries to concentrate on his silly little castle building game by asking Alice to hold on to his cards for him. Alice, on the other hand, takes the cards and places them between her natural plushies and under her fishnet stockings. Bo-chan is so turned on by seeing this that he begins to edge himself. As Bo-chan pulls his mind away from her thighs, he starts thinking that he can't live like this forever. He knows he needs to become strong, or Alice will always see him as weak. He also mentions out loud that if he doesn't break his curse, his family will never accept him. Elsewhere at the Gemini Circus, Zayn and Cuff are putting on a fantastic show for the crowd. The circus is seeing a full house after a long time, and the audience is thrilled by the performance. Once the show is over, Hugo excitedly approaches Cuff backstage. He thanks her for pulling him out of life being a pickpocket and bringing her to this circus. The little boy shows off his riz by conjuring up a flower out of thin air and hands it to Cuff. However, Zayn interrupts and picks Hugo away from his girlfriend, as if the latter is some stray cat in heat. This leads to a playful fight between Zayn and Hugo, which ends up with the little boy trying to pull off Zayn's mask. Eventually, the ringmaster steps in, grabs the boy, and cools down the matter. He thanks Cuff and Zayn for bringing people to his circus, and then retires for the night. Once everyone is gone, Cuff and Zayn sit together backstage and have a chit-chat about what just happened. When Cuff says that she likes it when people give her flowers, Zayn promises to give her the biggest flower he can find. Later on, the duo ponder about their lives and their future plans. Zayn asks Cuff how long they should stay at the circus. It is close to Bo-chan's mansion, and both of them actually love the place, but Cuff says that they need to leave it before anyone finds out that they are actually witches. Since Zayn cannot stay serious for more than 15 seconds at a time, he immediately changes the topic. He shows Cuff a handbag and says that he swiped it under Dallas' nose from the witch's world. Cuff is surprised and asks if anyone saw him steal the bag, but Zayn does the classic deny everything tactics and tells her that he simply took it because no one was using it. He places the box on her lap, and Cuff is delighted to find so many weird magical things inside it. However, Zayn asks her if she wants to live here as a witch, or would she prefer life as a human. He also points out that if she doesn't use her magic openly, people will always see her as a human. Cuff knows that Zayn doesn't have the luxury of looking normal because he looks like someone stuck a pigeon on top of a human. Nonetheless, she puts her face below his coat and reassures that she wants to stay with him, whether it is in witch form or human form. However, Ukas gets very close to Zayn, and their bodies accidentally touch. Zayn gets excited by the fact that he can feel her natural pillows rubbing against his body. Meanwhile, in the witch's world, Daleth is creepily thinking about Zayn and says that she wants the magic to control time. It turns out that she is not talking to herself, but the lifeless body of a beautiful woman named Sharon. Back at the Bakken mansion, Viola is looking at the painting of her grandparents when her brother Walter joins her. They both talk about how their grandfather never married after their grandma passed away. On the other hand, Alice is leaning over Bo-chan when Cuff arrives all of a sudden. Both Alice and Bo-chan are embarrassed and clarify that the situation is not as it appears to be. However, Cuff doesn't care and uses her magic to set blazing flames in the fireplace and all over the mansion. Bo-chan comments that it may be winter currently, but the huge flames are making the place too hot. So Cuff reassures him that there's no need to worry and uses a small vessel to create a temporary indoor swimming pool. Shortly afterwards, Alice and Cuff change into rather skimpy swimsuits and jump into the pool. Bo-chan cannot help but behave like a simp looking at Alice's well-seasoned fruit bowls. Alice invites Bo-chan to join them in the pool, but he declines, saying he's fine where he is. Nonetheless, she and Cuff then have a great time enjoying the cold water in the heated room. To distract himself from having an inflated rubber in his pants, Bo-chan starts working on a painting, but he starts feeling hot given that the fires are still raging in the fireplace. Alice comes to check on him while still wearing a swimsuit and asks if he's okay. Bo-chan is so dizzy that he stumbles forward and Alice almost catches him. Thankfully, Thankfully, any tragedy is avoided as Bo-chan stops himself from touching him. They end up standing very close, and both their faces turn red from embarrassment. A few hours later, Cuff heads back but leaves behind a small box as a gift from Zane. When Bo-chan opens the gift, it magically pulls both him and Alice inside. The duo find themselves in a strange place where an apparition of Alice arrives in a seductive bunny maid dress. She tells them that this is a place where all of Bo-chan's deepest fantasies are brought to life. Upon hearing this, Alice jokingly asks Bo-chan wants to see her in a bunny girl dress. As the trio moves forward, they see several of Bo-chan's fantasies brought to life. In one room, they see several versions of Alice, but all dressed seductively. They also see Bo-chan's sister Viola telling him that she is proud to have a brother like him. They soon come across a piano, which Bo-chan happily starts playing, and an audience along with Alice appears in front of him. After a while, they notice another door nearby, and Alice curiously takes a peek inside. There, she sees herself in a white wedding dress and realizes that Bo-chan wants to marry her. This makes her emotional, but she doesn't say anything about it to Bo-chan. Following this, they head back to the real world, but Alice keeps smiling to herself, thinking about what she saw in the last door. A few days later, Alice convinces Bo-chan to try his hand at indoor golf because she thinks he is good at handling balls. Alice uses her seductive voice to remind Bo-chan that since it's his first time, he should take it easy. The latter is completely tightened up and asks why she is speaking in such a hot way. Then, when he tries to hit the ball, he struggles as his aim isn't great. Alice, however, lands a perfect shot with ease. Seeing this, the Duke feels both surprised and quietly pleased that she is so good with putting balls inside their targets. Nonetheless, Alice tells him that he just needs to focus on the positioning of his club. Bo-chan tries to play seriously, but once again, she starts flirting with him, and he is just as easily distracted. After regaining his composure, he eventually hits the ball properly, and this time it lands exactly where it should. Bo-chan then actually starts to enjoy the game, practicing more and more. Both he and Alice have a lot of fun together that whole afternoon. Meanwhile, Walter is also playing golf on the lawn of the Bakken mansion when Viola arrives. She asks him to come with her so that she can practice applying makeup on his face. Walter pretends like he doesn't enjoy cosplaying as a girl, but eventually Viola drags him indoors. There, she gives him a full makeover. She applies makeup, gives him a new outfit, and transforms his appearance to resemble a girl. Viola jokingly tells him that he should visit their elder brother Duke like that. Upon hearing this, Walter gets a stupid idea of visiting his brother and making Bo-chan fall in love with himself. He thinks that if he can achieve this, their mother will kick Bo-chan out of her will. Shortly afterwards, Walter and Viola arrive at the Duke's mansion where the latter is still playing golf. When the Duke sees Walter in disguise, he gets fooled and asks Viola who the new girl is. Viola explains that she is their new maid, who has come here because she wanted to meet the Duke. Before anyone can ask any further questions, Viola leaves them alone. Thus, Bo-chan awkwardly invites the disguised Walter to play golf because he has the social skills of a toothbrush. But, once again, he struggles to aim well because he knows that two hot women are looking at him. The disguised Walter then uses paper and ink to convey a message which says, if she manages to land a perfect shot, the Duke will have to go out with her. He doesn't stop to see if Bo-chan agrees to this stipulation and immediately grabs the golf club. Walter then proceeds to hit the ball and lands a perfect shot. Suddenly, the disguised Walter pulls out a series of boards with extremely desperate messages, asking the Duke to marry her. It's an elaborate confession, but the Duke gently says that he can't marry anyone because he is already in someone else. A disappointed Walter screams in horror and bolts away from the place. Afterwards, on the way home, Walter looks at himself in a hand mirror and wonders whether his face isn't beautiful enough to seduce his own brother. Elsewhere at the Gemini Circus, Cuff is practicing for that night's opening act alongside Zane. They are soon joined by Hugo, who shows that he is already a pro-level simp by offering Cuff some juice. A jealous Zane tries to shoo the kid away, but Cuff accepts the juice and drinks it. She even calls Hugo a funny dude and pats his head, which makes Zane extremely jealous. Nearby, the ringmaster has been watching this and whispers to Zane that he needs to pull up or he will lose his chick to a 3 feet tall kid. The ringmaster also announces that the circus performance will soon begin and tells everyone to be prepared. Cuff says that she loves the circus and finds the place very special. The ringmaster then grabs Hugo and takes him away, giving Cuff and Zane a moment together. Soon, the circus is nearly ready to begin, and all the performers prepare themselves. Cuff jokingly tells Zane that if he is really brave, he should hold her hand. Zane's face turns red, but he eventually holds it, which makes Cuff blush too. The ringmaster then returns and announces that it's time for the performance to begin. Back at the mansion, Bo-chan and Alice sit down for dinner when suddenly, the witch Daleth arrives. She pulls Bo-chan to an alternative dimension and tells him that she wants a favor. It turns out that she wants Bo-chan to persuade Zine to use his powers of time control once again. The Duke refuses, explaining that Zine is his friend and he doesn't want to force anyone to do anything. Daleth, however, sweetens the deal. If Bo-chan helps her, she will in return assist him in breaking his curse. Meanwhile, in the real world, Alice is baffled because Bo-chan is sitting on the table like a statue. She tries to see if everything on his body is hard and even pokes his cheeks. Elsewhere, Zine starts to reminisce about the time when he and Cuff first met as children. She was the daughter of a witch and a human, while Zine's parents had left him in the human world. Their friendship started when Zine used his powers to revive a flower that Cuff cared about. He showed her his ability to control time and how he could teleport from one place to another when he froze time. Cuff absolutely loved this and the duo became fast friends. Unfortunately, one day a mob of human witch hunters cornered both their parents and eliminated them. Zine promised to bring them back using his time control magic, but he quickly realized he couldn't change someone's fate using his powers. From that day onwards, he started to hate his powers. In the alternative world, Daleth makes it clear that the witch who cursed Bo-chan is already dead, but she knows a few other powerful witches who are experts in breaking curses. She cannot guarantee that these witches can break his curse, but beggars can't be choosers. Daleth hands him a card, says she is hopeful that Bo-chan will consider the offer, and then vanishes. On the other hand, Alice, who is tired of the Duke not waking up, leans in, almost as if to kiss him. Thankfully, Bo-chan comes back to his senses on time and stops her before any physical contact is made. The Duke reminds her that if she touches him, she can die, but Alice asks why he was acting like a statue. The Duke then tells her everything that just happened, and then the duo discover a business card that Daleth has left. There is no information on the card except for a strange symbol. One afternoon, as Bo-chan is reading in his study, he notices Alice cleaning nearby. He tells her that she should get some rest from time to time, instead of working like she is actually a maid and not his naughty partner. He even takes the broom off her hands, but Alice yanks out another duster from her milk fridge and insists she can still work. Later that night, Alice walks along the hallway of the mansion while the ghost of a bride talks to her. She soon reaches the study and is unexpectedly greeted by Bo-chan. It turns out he has been working all night long to decipher the meaning behind the symbol on the card. On the other hand, Alice continues to hear the voice of the bride ghost. Bo-chan, who may be a simp but not a fool, notices this and asks Alice if she can see ghosts. The latter doesn't answer directly, and instead she continues to flirt with him. The Duke then tells her that the other day he saw her talking to someone who wasn't visible to him, but Alice denies that she can see spirits because she knows she can manipulate the Duke into believing anything with her bazookas. At that moment, the ghost of the young bride appears right next to Alice. The ghost explains that she was once supposed to marry a man she loved, but when he proposed to her with a ring, she got so giddy that she fell down the stairs and died. Ever since, the bride has been forced to wander around all alone as a ghost, and she even discovered that the ring her would-be husband gave her was larger than her finger size. Alice listens kindly to the story and tries to comfort her. By this time, Bo-chan also knows that his maid can actually see and communicate with ghosts. After he comes to know about the ghost's tragic story, Bo-chan shows Alice several rings that he had found in the mansion. He says that the ghost can take any ring that she likes and hopes it would free her soul. But he and Alice immediately go off topic and start to flirt like a cringy couple in their first week of dating. The ghost comments that she feels a bit envious watching them, and suddenly she possesses Alice's body. While possessed, Alice becomes much more thirsty than she usually is and asks Bo-chan if he wants to do horizontal activities with her. The latter absolutely wants to do it, but he knows his curse will eliminate Alice if he agrees to do it. So he tucks his tail between his legs and runs away from the spot. As soon as he leaves, the ghost exits Alice's body and apologizes for trying to do something inappropriate. She then admits that she still has feelings for the man she was once supposed to marry, but now she has realized that she must move on and be happy about the things she experienced. Before disappearing, she leaves Alice with a bouquet of flowers as a gift. The next morning, the Duke and Alice sit outside, thinking about the business card with the weird symbol. As they talk, they notice a figure approaching from a distance. Alice remarks that this might be the witch that the business card was referring to. Suddenly, the mysterious figure collapses before she can reach the mansion. Bo-chan and Alice rush toward her, and the stranger weakly tells them to quickly pick her up and place her in salt water. As soon as they do, they discover that she is not an ordinary human or a witch for that matter. The stranger introduces herself as Amelia, a half-human, half-octopus girl with powerful magical capabilities. As expected, Daleth had informed her about Bo-chan's curse and that she came to help him. She claims to have broken a similar curse many years ago and believes she can do it again. But the Duke warns her not to proceed and explains that he has made a deal with Daleth. If Amelia somehow manages to break the curse, he will be forced to do something he doesn't want to. Amelia finds his sense of honor admirable and calls him royal in spirit. From there, the conversation takes a sharp turn like a blind man driving on a freeway, as Alice asks Amelia about her history. The half-octopus, half-woman starts sharing her backstory. Amelia recounts how she used to take the form of a giant octopus and attack cargo ships in sea when she was bored. Unfortunately, one day she was captured by and taken aboard a ship. Many people tried to finish her, but she was saved by a man who protected her from harm, smuggled her out and let her back in the sea. Since then, they became close and eventually fell in love with each other. She even gave him one of her rings as a token of their relationship. Unbeknownst to Alice and Bo-chan, that man happens to be none other than the ringmaster. They were happy together, but obviously she had to head back to the sea while her so-called husband had to go back to making a living in the city. Once the sob story is over, Amelia tells Bo-chan that she truly wants to help break his curse. She reaches out to touch him with one of her tentacles, but the Duke immediately pulls away because he is habituated to not letting any baddies touch him. To demonstrate her power, Amelia uses her magic to summon seawater into the mansion's garden. The area is flooded temporarily, but both the Duke and Alice manage to keep breathing without much trouble. They also have fun exploring all the creatures that show up around the mansion. On the other hand, Amelia observes the Duke curiously and says she's trying to understand who could have placed such a powerful curse on such a kind person. After a while, Amelia prepares to break the curse and extends her tentacle to touch the Duke's hand. But before she makes contact, she suddenly pulls back, startled by the sheer vicious nature of the curse. She says that it is much more powerful than she expected, and that she might not be able to undo it on her own. Meanwhile, Daleth keeps on watching Zane like a creep through the eyes of her raven. Back at the mansion, Amelia reveals a major truth. The curse was placed by a witch named Sade, who was Daleth's twin sister. This shocks Alice, since she had read in the notebook about twin sisters. Bo-chan also adds 2 and 2 together, and wonders if Daleth is trying to revive Sade using Zane's time magic. Realizing she may have opened her trap more than it was actually necessary, Amelia stops herself. Soon after, she becomes overwhelmed and collapses again. Bo-chan and Alice then gently place her back into the sea, where she swims away, saying goodbye for now. Later that day, Alice and Bo-chan sit together, where the latter tells her that once the curse is broken, he wants to go on a journey with her. He asks her to promise that they'll travel together once that day comes. Alice, who is a little emotional, says that if the curse really is lifted, she's not sure if she'll be able to stay by his side. Still, she promises him that she will be there no matter what. That night, on top of a roof somewhere, Cuff and Zane are sitting peacefully. However, as always, Cuff is allergic to keeping her mouth shut and starts yapping about her abandonment issues. She says that she never wants to be lonely and asks Zane if he would ever leave her. Like a true alpha man, Zane replies that he would do anything for her, even if it meant that he would have to leave her. The next day, Alice and Bo-chan, who is dressed as if he is a plague doctor from the 17th century, are strolling around in the market. Alice openly flirts and rubs against Bo-chan since the heavy protective outfit prevents his curse from harming her through touch. Alice, as always, continues to turn up her flirting until Bo-chan is red in the face like a tomato. tomato. It is also revealed that they are searching for Gemini Circus because they want to see Cuff and Zane. Nearby, Hugo is passing through with a bag of groceries in his hand when Bo-chan asks him for help. Of course, the two of them don't know each other, and the boy asks the duo where they're headed. Victim tells him that they're on their way to a circus to meet some friends. The boy becomes visibly angry upon hearing that he has got yet another competition for Cuff. As he tries to punch Bo-chan aggressively, the latter dodges all the attacks skillfully. Thankfully, Alice calms the boy and gently tells him that they are looking for Zane and Cuff for an important matter. The boy then introduces himself as Hugo and offers to take them to the circus. After 30 minutes, they arrive at the circus, and Cuff is extremely happy to see her friends. On the other hand, Hugo is as curious as a kid who wants to play video games on your mobile, asks about Bo-chan's curse. The latter explains that anything he touches dies instantly, and to demonstrate, he touches a rose, which withers in seconds. Then the ringmaster arrives, and instead of being creeped out like a normal person, he is almost turned on. He asks Bo-chan to join the circus, saying that his ability could be quite entertaining, but the Duke politely refuses. The ringmaster then walks away, and Cuff tells everyone that he is their boss. Later, Duke watches Alice stretching for a performance and seeing her pull her limbs. He blushes intensely. Meanwhile, Hugo and Cuff begin showing them around the circus and explain the daily activities. Bo-chan also starts practicing juggling and slowly picks up the skill. Sometime later, Hugo talks about the ringmaster's kindness, saying he gives shelter and employment to those who are different and rejected by society. Many circus performers have been given a second chance by him, and for that they are grateful. However, like always, Bo-chan is barely paying attention and is quietly thinking about his curse. Though hesitant, he continues with the circus training. Elsewhere at night, Zane sits alone over a footbridge contemplating something. Later, Alice comes to see Duke practicing and feels genuinely happy to see his progress. That night, Zane has had too much to drink and has to be hauled into the circus like cargo. In a different dimension, the chief of the witches, Daloth, is inside her church. She is alone and holding the unconscious body of a woman in her arms. It is revealed that this body belongs to Sharon, her best friend, who is still alive but under a deep magical slumber. Daloth says she is going to the human world and invites her annoying sidekick Kito to come along if interested. Kito watches Daloth closely and comments that Bo-chan and Zane are the two individuals who helped open the path for witches into the human world. Daloth responds that she plans to bring Zane to the witch world as she believes he can become an extraordinary magician. Kito agrees to help her bring Zane over and runs away from the spot in happiness. When Kito is gone, Daloth opens her mask and the several scars on her face can be clearly seen. The next morning, Bo-chan performs juggling tricks, and for the first time ever, he manages to impress the crowd at the circus. The ringmaster tells him that using his magic would be even more impactful, but this makes Bo-chan anxious. He fears his power could harm others, especially the people he loves. Later, Bo-chan, Alice, Zane, and Cuff sit together to eat. As Cuff leaves for a moment, Zane tells the others that he may have to leave soon because Daloth is after his powers. Duke warns that if Zane disappears, Cuff will be heartbroken. Nearby, Cuff is watching from a distance and notices something is off. She returns with food and joins them, trying to lift the mood. However, Zane is straight up a Hongdae guy and starts staring at Cuff's passive asset. That night, the circus performance begins in the middle of the city center, and surprisingly, they once again have a packed house. Bo-chan performs decently, and the show goes on as planned. But then, Daloth, Keto, and Sato suddenly appear and begin to wreak havoc all over the place. They capture Zane and try to force him to go with them to the witch world. Daloth warns him that if he refuses, they might be forced to hurt his friend. Initially, Zane does not try to resist much while Tato and Keto group together to tie him up slowly, but he eventually shows his superior magical capabilities by freeing himself from their grip. Zane also reveals that he can also use illusion magic. Daloth is impressed and remarks that he is really a genius. Interestingly, he does not appear to have a qualm in going with Daloth. Instead, he asks her for 2 days so that he can say goodbye to Cuff. With this assurance, Daloth leaves with Tito and Keto and flies back to the witch's world. Zane, meanwhile, watches Cuff from a distance, and it appears that he has already made up his mind now. After a while, Bo-chan reflects on everything that happened at the circus. He is soon joined by Alice, and it is clear that he is visibly happy to see her in her formal but short dress. However, he also seems slightly downhearted, and he tells her that others will see her in that dress too, which makes him uneasy. Meanwhile, Hugo informs Cuff that Zane actually wants to talk about something important with her. It turns out that like a true player, he plans to leave and just wants to say goodbye. However, when the two finally meet, he thanks her for everything she has done. Cuff is furious as she realizes that he probably plans to leave her like a chewed out gum. As she starts to go away, Zane grabs her hand and tells her that he loves her. But before he could mention that he has to leave now, Cuff runs away as she feels embarrassed by the sudden confession. When Cuff arrives at the city center, the circus finally starts with a huge audience enjoying the show. All of a sudden, Kato arrives there and attacks the circus crew, probably hoping to force Zane to use his magic. Since there is a huge crowd, Zane and Cuff are skeptical about using their powers. But Bo-chan channels his inner Terminator and manages to wither out the huge plant that Kato has been manipulating to attack the circus crew. Although this works, the attack still continues as the other side has more firepower. Daloth uses her illusion magic to manipulate Zane into seeing a younger Cuff in danger after he forgets where he is. Meanwhile, Keto attacks one more time, and when Cuff tries to fight back, she ends up losing balance and can barely hang onto a rope tied high above the ground. Zane sees her falling moments later and realizes that he has to use time magic. Unlike the loser Spider-Man, Zane successfully saves Cuff, after which she replies to her confession with a kiss. They tie up Keto and Tito, but Zane is adamant to get more kisses from his lover. Unfortunately for him, Cuff finds his behavior annoying and childish, after which she ends up slapping him. Zane eventually deactivates the time magic, and others don't even realize what just happened. Shortly after Zane's time magic begins to wear off and people start coming back to their senses, he and Cuff pretend as if all of the things that just happened were part of an act. They thank the audience, who are so dumb that they had no idea they could be injured due to the recent events. Bo-chan obviously knows that Zane used the time magic to save Cuff's life, and from his appearance, he wrongly presumes that there has been a scuffle, not realizing that it was Cuff who had slapped her lover instead. While the rest of the circus crew is busy doing the cleaning work, Cuff and Zane talk to Kido and Tito, who are tied up at this point. Interestingly, Daleth appears in front of Alice and Bakken. Naturally, Bakken is quite furious at her since she forced his friend to use his time magic for her own personal advancement. But Daleth shocks the duo by pointing out that the ends she is aiming at are eventually going to help them as well. Although they are initially suspicious, Daleth surprises them further by revealing that Alice's mother Shannon is not dead, and she now plans to wake her up from her slumber. Alice does not appear to believe her words, as she has been told that her mother died in an accident a long time ago. Daleth points out that she is a massive fool and she has never been presented with any evidence to accept such a bizarre falsehood. Alice confesses that she would be really happy if her words turn out to be true. But before they could discuss further, Cuff spots Daleth and punches her in the face as hard as she can for everything she did that day. Instead of fighting back, the witch flees. Later that night, the circus crew has a feast with Alice and Bo-chan. It turns out that the ringmaster had noticed what had happened earlier that evening, and revealed to the rest of the crew that Zane and Cuff are witches. Interestingly, he does not wish to cut them off from the rest of the team, and even goes over the top by calling them his family. Zaku then shocks everyone by revealing that he is actually Amelia's husband. After the party, Alice and Bo-chan leave for the mansion, while Cuff tells Zane to never even think about leaving her again. After spending several days at the Gemini Circus, Bo-chan and Alice finally return back to the Duke's mansion. They are greeted by Rob, who tries to hug Bo-chan but misses him by several meters because of his bad eyesight. Back at the Bakken household, Walter is busy giving his mother the information that she never asked for. He tells her that he has completed his studies in general education, politics, economics, linguistics, and musical essence, but his mother barely cares. However, Walter is too thick to realize the indifference his mother has for him. Instead, he thinks that by spring his eldest brother will be stripped off the title of heir, and he will become the man of the house. But he is not satisfied with simply getting that title. He wants to prove to everyone that he is worthy of it. Since spring is almost here, he wants to hatch a plan that will make Bakken look bad in the eyes of their mother. While he is scheming and plotting like a villain from a B-grade movie, Walter runs into his sister Viola. She has been carrying a mountain of macaroons and gulping them down like there is no tomorrow. He tells her that she has put on a lot of unnecessary weight, but Viola thinks that he simply wants to steal her macaroons. But Walter tells her to look at her stockings, which are clinging onto her legs for dear life. And yet Viola keeps on stuffing her face with sweet delicacies, and says that it is perfectly fine for a growing girl like her to be filling up her figure. When his sister refuses to put down the food, Walter says that she may end up as nothing more than their mother's caretaker in the future. He also points out that Viola's crush, Rob, likes his woman fit and not swollen like a cow. This provocation is enough for her to decide that she's going on a diet. Following this, Viola starts an exercising regime with the help of Walter, but she still dreams about getting a mouthful. On top of lifting weights, the siblings also start running. Walter tries his best to push Viola, but the latter collapses on the ground as she has reached her limits. She hopes that Rob will be able to accept a little weight on her body. In a surprising twist, Walter then shows his soft side, and tells his sister that she can achieve whatever she wants. This reminds Viola of their childhood when Walter was always supportive of her. Motivated by his words, Viola gets up and starts running once more. In the meantime, in the Duke's mansion, Alice and Bo-chan are visiting their butler's room for the first time in ages. Bo-chan points out that the room is piled up with all kinds of gifts that Rob refuses to throw away. Among these gifts is a mysterious wooden box placed above a cupboard. When Alice tries to take a closer look at the box, Rob distracts her with a gift. The butler hands her a notebook that contains drawings that Bo-chan did as a child. Moments later, Bo-chan gives Rob a paper bag that contains several gifts from the members of the Gemini Circus. This includes unnecessary stuff like tickets to the circus, a cat-shaped stone from Cuff, and a spyglass. On top of this, Alice and Bo-chan both also have brought personalized gifts for the butler. Rob had been feeling lonely earlier that day, but now seeing all the gifts and the love people are giving him, he realizes that he is not as lonely as he thinks. Later that night, Alice looks at the notebook that Rob had given her earlier. It contains a sketch of her and Bo-chan as children, and this makes her tap her feet like a bunny in heat. The next afternoon, Zine, Cuff, and Hugo are enjoying the day out in the local zoo. Zine is bummed that he is not getting to spend time with his girlfriend thanks to the pesky third wheel. He has also been tasked by the ringmaster to find inspiration for the next circus act. Apart from this, Zine is also aware that Daleth must be out there planning her next move. He has no idea why she wanted him to use his time magic so badly, but he does guess that it has something to do with waking up Alice's mother. His train of thoughts is interrupted by Cuff and Hugo, who take him to watch the animals. The three of them have a great time generally, but Hugo keeps reminding Zane not to have dirty eyes on their mutual girlfriend. Zane tells the little boy that Cuff is his girlfriend, and chastises him to go play with his pickpocket group. However, Hugo reveals that many of them are even hostile towards him. Towards the evening, all of them then return back to their homes and the new couple get a little time for themselves. But thanks to Zane not understanding personal boundaries, he gets smacked by Cuff. Nearby, in the market, Walter also visits a shady-looking house. Back in the witch's world, Daleth is having an existential crisis and curses her sister for giving her the scars on her face. That night, as Cuff and Zane are headed to the Duke's mansion, they get caught up in a huge snow blizzard. This forces them to shelter in a nearby cave where Zane tries to be slippery with his girlfriend. Cuff, on the other hand, uses her fire magic to warm up the cave. Both of them are feeling a slight tension because this is the first time they have been alone since they officially became boyfriend and girlfriend. To pass time, Cuff makes apparitions of several kinds of animals through her fire magic while Zane guesses their names. In the middle of the game, Cuff also reveals she did know that Zine had been thinking about Daleth when they were at the zoo. Zine admits he was, but says that he does not regret using the time magic. He also tells her that he intends to use his magic one more time and go back to the past, so that he can stop Bo-chan from getting the curse in the first place. Zine is unsure if this will work because no matter how powerful his magic is, he cannot change fate. Cuff points out that it may not be in Bo-chan's fate to have been cursed. Nonetheless, both of them are very fond of the Duke and want to do everything in their power to get him a normal life. As the blizzard keeps storming, the two of them end up spending the entire night in the cave. The following morning, the weather clears up and they head to the Duke's mansion. One afternoon, Alice and Bo-chan are reading a book, but like Gen Z students addicted to 30-second reels, both of them quickly fall asleep. Bo-chan is then mysteriously transported inside the world of the book. Confused, he wonders out loud what strange place this is. He also finds himself dressed as a wolf, with paws, a tail, and fluffy ears, while Alice appears in a seductive black dress that curiously has a hood. Suddenly, Bo-chan realizes that they have entered the world of Little Red Riding Hood. They are then joined by a small girl in a classic red hooded dress who introduces herself as Little Red Riding Hood. Despite being an adult, Bo-chan is visibly excited and asks her for an autograph. However, the girl explains that there is a naughty wolf in the house up ahead, and that she wants him to defeat it for her. She even makes a deal and says that if he succeeds, she will grant him any wish. Bo-chan asks her if she could break his curse, to which she confidently replies that she totally can. Before they proceed, Bo-chan asks why he is dressed like a wolf. Little Red Riding Hood explains that he has been dressed that way so the real wolf will mistake him for a friend and lower its guard. A short while later, Bo-chan and Alice reach the house of Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother. They head inside and see the wolf sleeping in bed, just like in the original story. Bo-chan is worried about how they'll defeat the wolf since they don't have any weapons. Alice, on the other hand, is more focused on flirting with Bo-chan. She keeps speaking to the wolf, pretending it's Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother, all while aggressively flirting with Bo-chan. The wolf eventually gets tired of their public display of affection and leaps out of the bed, vowing to eat both of them. Just as it is about to attack, it lays eyes on Alice's chest, and the sight reminds it of its own mother. The wolf immediately transforms into a small pup and nuzzles against Alice's natural pillows. A few moments later, Bo-chan hands the pup to Little Red Riding Hood, and she happily says that she will raise it as her own pet. Bo-chan then reminds her about the promise to remove his curse. However, the little girl admits that she was lying just to get their help. Before Bo-chan can respond, he suddenly wakes up from the dream. That night, in the Bakken family mansion, Walter reminisces about his childhood. His mother always reminded him that if something were to happen to his elder brother Bakken, he would have to become the family heir. Even as a child, Walter had always been aware that his mother and sister favored Bakken over him. They wanted Bakken to become the heir, and even now their mother often stands by the window, waiting for Bakken to return home after breaking his curse. Meanwhile, Walter, who is now wearing a strange robe, enters his room and talks to himself. He recalls what a shady merchant in town had told him. If he wears this magical robe and touches a mirror on the night of a blood moon, he can attend the Sabbath where the witches gather. Looking into the mirror in his room like a true narcissist, Walter says to himself that he must uncover the truth about the curse. He must do so before Bo-chan does, and make everyone realize that he is better than his brother. He then obsessively repeats that he's better than Bo-chan. Unbeknownst to him, his mother is quietly watching from the doorway. Walter then places his palm on the mirror and is transported into the world of the witches. Meanwhile, in the Duke's mansion, Alice informs Bo-chan that she also wants to attend the Sabbath to see if what Daleth said was true. At the circus a few days earlier, Daleth had told them that she planned to wake Alice's mother Sharon from her magical slumber. Since they hadn't finished their conversation, Alice now wants to meet Daleth personally. Then she pulls out a magic stone that Cuff had given her from a rather inappropriate place. Using the residual magic in the stone, she and Bo-chan travel through a mirror into the witch's realm. On the other side, Walter arrives at the witch's world and hides behind a tree. To his surprise, the gathering is far larger than he had imagined. Nearby, the two baddies Keto and Sato inform the congregation that their leader Daleth will not be attending the meeting. Walter hears this and decides that he must meet this leader of witches at any cost. Before he can do anything, Bo-chan and Alice also arrive via a magic portal. The gathered witches notice Bo-chan and start chasing him, leaving Alice alone with Walter. Once the crowd goes away, Alice and Walter begin walking away from the spot. During their conversation, Alice casually notes that Walter's personality is quite similar to Bo-chan's. Walter clearly doesn't like being compared to his brother, and ends up nosebleeding out of frustration. Eventually, they reach the church where Daleth lives. Before they can enter, a strange-looking dwarf steals Alice's necklace and runs away. Walter manages to trip the dwarf and demands the necklace back. However, the dwarf, having overheard their earlier conversation, mocks Walter, repeatedly calling him the second son. Irritated, Walter and Alice chase the dwarf into a bizarre house. The dwarf continues taunting Walter and keeps slipping away from his grasp, turning the chase into a game of hide-and-seek. The continuous teasing frustrates Walter, and it even prevents him from concentrating. But then, for the first time in his life, he realizes that the dwarf is deliberately using his anger against him. Calming himself, Walter soon figures out that there are actually two dwarves who look identical. Fortunately, the younger one does not mock Walter for being the second son. Walter cleverly uses this to his advantage and sows discord between the twins. Eventually, the younger dwarf snatches the necklace from his elder brother and hands it back to Alice. With the necklace retrieved, Alice and Walter finally arrive at Daleth's church. Walter, being a weirdo, decides to climb up and sneak in through the roof to spy on Daleth without being noticed. Inside, Daleth is an emotional wreck and on the verge of tears. She still hasn't recovered from the circus incident, when her face was accidentally revealed. She begins to sob and lament how her cruel and sadistic older sister Sod disfigured her face. Walter, who has been eavesdropping like a typical mother-in-law, suddenly exclaims that he understands why Daleth is crying. Shocked by the human's presence, Daleth prepares to swat him like an insect. But Walter tells her his own story, how he has always lived in his brother's shadow, how he was never good enough in his family's eyes. He encourages her, saying that she doesn't need to hide the scars left by her sister. Moved by his words, Daleth reveals her face openly for the first time, and Walter tells her that she is beautiful. Just then, the other witches arrive with their prisoners, Bo-chan and Alice, who are bound in chains. However, upon seeing Daleth without her mask, the witches panic and run away, believing they've intruded on something private. Nonetheless, Walter goes full soft boy and encourages Daleth to embrace who she is, telling her that nothing will change if she keeps hiding from the world. Inspired by his words, Daleth finally steps outside and shows her real face to the other witches, including her scars. She promises to stop wallowing in sadness and instead try to build a normal life and relationships with others. In the meantime, Viola brings herself and her exhausting over-the-top energy to the Gemini circus. Zane welcomes her and then takes her to the dungeon where Cuff is taking care of the circus's new lion. To Viola's utter horror of Viola, the lion appears to be eating Cuff, but thankfully, Cuff stands up completely unharmed and says that the lion was simply playing with her because it sees her as its mother. Zane then adds that the two girls should go and have fun in the town until the show starts. Following this, the two girls head to the town and as usual immediately get distracted by a lot of cute stuff and food. Both of them enjoy their day out, especially Viola, who has barely left the house lately. Cuff asks what she has been doing nowadays, and Viola replies that she has been studying every single day. In her excitement, Viola also blurts out that she is happy that she is getting a chance to hang out with a friend. She immediately tries to act like a mysterious, edgy girl by pretending that she didn't call Cuff her friend, but the latter cheekily tells her not to walk back on what she just said. Shortly afterwards, the two girls head to a clothing store where Viola plans to give Cuff a complete fashion makeover. Cuff tries the dress that Viola picks for her and comes out looking really beautiful. She thanks Viola for choosing the dress and says that she should try becoming a fashion designer. They also realize that the time for the circus's opening act is almost here, so Cuff promises that she will blow a kiss to Viola during her performance and the two of them head back to Gemini. As usual, Cuff puts on a great show for a packed house and leaves everyone, including Viola, in awe. She also keeps her promise and blows a kiss towards Viola, making the latter blush like a teenage boy flipping through a magazine for the first time. Back at the world of the witches, Walter lets his elder brother and Alice out of the chains. Alice then asks Daleth to reveal every information about her mother. The chief of the witches agrees to do so and opens up a portal so that she can tell the visitors the story in a more visual way. As they are walking through the portal, Walter and Bo-chan start to quarrel once more over a trivial thing. However, it is more than noticeable that the witch takes the side of Walter because she is secretly smitten with him. Shortly afterwards, they arrive at a room in the interior of the portal which contains a casket in the middle. Daleth opens the casket and to the surprise of everyone present there, it contains the body of Sharon. This obviously deeply affects Alice, but Daleth quickly points out that her mother is not indeed dead, but rather in a deep long sleep. Daleth tells everyone that her supposed death in an accident was a lie told by Rob. Alice touches her mother and realizes that she actually is not dead because her skin is still warm. Daleth then adds that it was her sister Sade who put a curse on Sharon, on the same day that she put a curse on Bo-chan. Since her sister was a magical genius, both the courses are really difficult to break. This is why Daleth wants to wake Sharon up so that she can finally know how her sister actually died. Since the confusion is now over, the visitors get ready to go back to the real world. But before they leave, Daleth tells Alice that she will answer one more question if they have any further curiosities. Bo-chan jumps in like a greedy child and asks to know more about his curse. However, since Daleth is simping over Walter, she gives him the opportunity to ask any question he wants. Thankfully, Walter also asks about the series of events that happened at his home during the time when his brother was cursed. Following this, Daleth takes the visitors inside her memory of the day when Bo-chan was cursed. They then soon arrive on the lawn of the Bo-chan household as apparitions. There, they see young versions of the brothers playing around the grounds. Also nearby is Sharon, who is hanging the laundry to dry. Then, they notice the younger version of Daleth, who is wearing a mask and cowering behind her sister Sod. The sight of seeing her intimidating elder sister is so scary that Daleth begins feeling physically nauseous. She promises to keep relaying information about Bo-chan's curse, but forbids the humans from coming to the Sabbath. Seconds later, Alice and Bo-chan wake up in their mansion right in front of the mirror that they had used to go to the witch's world. Both of them are very satisfied with what they witnessed that night, and they also add one more mission to their list: find a way to wake up Sharon alongside breaking Bo-chan's curse. On top of this, Bo-chan also realizes that he wants to make friends with lots of witches and humans instead of being scared of them. Similarly, Walter has also safely made it back to his home, but instead of being thankful of what he experienced, he has already started to plot how to bring down his elder brother. Later that afternoon, Bo-chan discovers yet another weird gift from Zane, a genie lamp. He thinks the lamp is more of an ornamental prop rather than an actual magical lamp, but when he rubs it, a genie, who has taken the form of a seductively dressed Alice, appears from within. The genie grants grants Bo-chan 3 wishes and the latter immediately says that he wants his curse to be broken. So the genie chants a strange mantra and then casually says that his curse has been broken. However, Bo-chan cannot be sure, so as his second wish, he asks for a way to confirm that his curse has been lifted. The genie then conjures up a rose and hands it to Bo-chan. To his surprise, the flower does not die even when he touches it, which confirms that his curse has been lifted. Unfortunately, the genie informs that she couldn't completely eradicate the curse and had to transfer it to someone else. This dampens Bo-chan's mood because he does not want to be happy at the cost of someone else. So for his third wish, he wishes things to be back to as they were before. That night, Alice has to go somewhere else for a few hours, so Bo-chan comes to the front door to accompany her. The two say goodbye for the time being and head their own ways. However, Alice keeps remembering how Bo-chan unselfishly chose to be cursed instead of causing someone else any kind of discomfort. This makes us so emotional that he runs to the window of Bo-chan's study and taps on it to catch his attention. Bo-chan looks at her from the other side of the window and his jaw drops to the floor when she asks him to kiss her. The duo then share their first kiss from either side of the window. A few days later, Walter is reading in his study while heavy rain pours outside. As he gets up to close the curtains, he suddenly notices Daleth standing alone by the mansion gate, like the ghost from a B-grade Hollywood movie. Acting like a gentleman, Walter heads out into the rain and brings her inside the mansion. As they walk through the corridors, Daleth begins to reminisce about the past. She recalls how she and her sister used to visit this mansion quite often. She mentions that she frequently saw Gerbera, Walter's mother, during those visits. Daleth explains that Gerbera was extremely close to Sharon, and ever since Sharon's death, Gerbera has not been the same. Walter and Daleth sit down to continue their conversation over a cup of tea. However, when Walter goes to the kitchen to get more tea, Daleth mysteriously vanishes from the mansion like the hot girl does after seeing your height in real life. Meanwhile, Alice is having a private conversation with Rob, the one-eyed butler. She asks if he knows about the two women in white habits who used to visit the mansion. Rob is momentarily surprised, but Alice continues and says that she knows that Rob had lied about the circumstances surrounding her mother's death. However, Alice adds that she now knows Rob was simply protecting her. She says that knowing her mother's true fate would have been too much for her younger self to bear, so Rob had told her Sharon died in an accident. She also recalls that when she first asked about the two women, Rob pretended not to know anything. Upon hearing this, Rob sighs, lights a cigarette, and finally admits that what she says is true. Alice continues to annoy him like a bug, and asks him to vomit out everything he knows about the two women. Rob begins by saying that he first laid eyes on the two women many years ago, back when they all lived together in the same mansion. He explains that the master, referring to Bo-chan's grandfather, was a deeply religious man, so Rob never thought that he was doing some nasty stuff with them behind everyone's back. When Alice asks what kind of relationship Sharon had with Bo-chan's grandfather, Rob assures her that there was nothing shady between them. He explains that they simply cared for each other deeply and may have been into roleplay. Sometimes they acted like master and servant, at other times like teacher and student, or even parent and child, but they were always the dearest of friends. Rob admits that it brought him great happiness to watch them together. Seeing similar feelings blossom between Alice and Bo-chan brings him joy as well. He adds that it almost feels like the work of fate. Alice blushes and Rob momentarily loses track of what he was saying. She reminds him that they were discussing the two women in white. Rob then continues and says that after the master's death, the regular visits from the two women suddenly stopped. The last time he saw them, they were carrying Sharon away. At that point, Bo-chan had just been cursed, and everything in the household was falling apart. Rob admits that with so much happening, he couldn't focus on the two women, so he doesn't know much more. Alice thanks him for his honesty and says that she plans to share the information with Bo-chan. Elsewhere, at the Gemini Circus, Zane is busy tapping his inner sad boy aesthetic when Daleth suddenly appears. She teases him by asking if the circus is closed today. Zane begins to explain that their next performance is scheduled later, but then he recognizes Daleth and is stunned to see her without her mask. He asks if the whole secrecy around not showing her face is now over. Daleth replies that it is, adding that this is her new self. Upon hearing this, Zane immediately starts flirting with her, but soon realizes it isn't as much fun without Cuff around to stop him. He then asks what she wants from him. Daleth says she has made a decision. She wants them all to be friends now. She explains that helping them might also help her in the long run. Rather obviously, Zane is skeptical and asks if she really expects him to believe that. Daleth says that she thinks he should and tells him she has already made peace with Bo-chan. She encourages him to confirm it if he has doubts. Zane tells her there's no need and admits she may be a little mean and overly secretive, but she is not a liar. He then asks what she wants him to do. Daleth replies that she will start by giving him a hint. She tells him to investigate her sister, Sade. Zane asks what he could possibly learn about Sade that Daleth doesn't already know, and where he should begin. Daleth points to her chest, reminding him of something hidden there. Following this, Zane pulls out a piece of paper from his chest pocket. Daleth asks him to give Cuff her regards before walking away. Once she is gone, Zane uses his magic to transform the paper into a full logbook. That night at the Duke's mansion, Bo-chan and Cuff prepare a small cake for Alice. Cuff says she is sure Alice will love it, but a wet wimp Bo-chan asks if she's certain, then thanks her for being there. Cuff cheerfully replies that she wouldn't miss it for the world, joking that it's Alice's second birthday. Bo-chan begins to correct her, saying it's not her second birthday, but then stops, realizing Cuff is only interested in celebrating. As expected, Cuff starts dancing and enjoying herself without knowing what the celebration is about. At midnight, Bo-chan and Cuff switch off all the lights. Bo-chan explains that he asked Alice to meet him in the room at this time. He adds that she doesn't know about the surprise, so he hopes she'll be happy. Alice soon arrives, and when she sees the cake, she is completely surprised and delighted as Bo-chan has made a cake just for her. As usual, the two begin to flirt until Cuff interrupts to give Alice a gift. It turns out that Cuff and Viola picked a beautiful dress for the occasion. As Alice blows out the candles, the electricity suddenly goes out. Bo-chan panics and tells both girls to stay still until their eyes adjust, warning them not to touch him. The girls agree to his warning, but Alice mischievously takes advantage of the darkness and begins undressing. Coincidentally, the lights return just as she finishes putting on the bird-themed dress from Cuff. She looks stunning in it, and soon all three begin dancing and celebrating together. After the party ends, Bo-chan notices a large hole in the roof of Alice's cottage. He says the boards must have rotted, but is relieved the rain has stopped. He takes full advantage of this by deciding that Alice should sleep in the mansion for the night. Suddenly, Kido arrives and asks if they have seen Daleth. The humans are surprised to see the bikini-wearing witch, but Kido explains that Daleth had asked her to visit Bo-chan and extend a hand of friendship. Kido then volunteers to repair Alice's cottage using her plant manipulation magic. The humans thank her for her kindness and return to the mansion for the night. However, Bo-chan is unable to sleep due to the tension in his pants, so he heads back to the cottage a few hours later to check on the progress and brings tea for Kido. They talk, and Kido explains that Daleth never intended to become the leader of the Witches' Sabbath, and it was something she was pushed into. Despite the history of hostility between humans and witches, Daleth now wants to pursue peace and friendship. By dawn, Kido not only repairs the roof, but also replaces all of the furniture in Alice's cottage. Bo-chan and Alice are grateful and promise to invite her to every party from now on. The next day in the city, Zane, Cuff, and Hugo are walking through the marketplace when they run into Hugo's former pickpocket friends. The group teases Hugo for being a clown by joining the circus and mocks him with cruel words. Hugo, unable to stand the insults, rushes at them. Cuff also wants to jump in, but Zane stops her, saying Hugo should fight his own battles. Eventually, Hugo catches up to the group, but by then, they have already been beaten by two strangers, a young boy and his taller adult female companion. The strangers ask Hugo not to report them to the police and then quietly walk away. One afternoon, Bo-chan is checking out a novel when he suddenly stumbles upon an illustration of a bare-chested woman. He is flustered by it and scared that someone might catch him ogling at the picture. But just as he peeks at the woman's milk fridges, Alice surprisingly arrives from the window. Bo-chan quickly hides the photo of the woman and lets Alice in. Unsurprisingly, she already knows how big of a weirdo he is but doesn't seem to mind it. More importantly, Alice has brought a flying broom with her. Bo-chan does not believe that the broom she's carrying can actually fly, but she reveals that it was a gift from Kido. The two of them then sit on the broom and start floating throughout the mansion. However, even while having fun, Bo-chan cannot help but think about Sade, the witch that put the death curse on him. He channels his inner Gandhi since he does not hold any resentment or hate towards Sade in his heart. Rather, he would have loved to talk with Sade so that she may have lifted the curse on him on her own. Later that day, Cuff and Zane arrive at the Duke's mansion along with their luggage. Bo-chan is surprised as they usually only come to stay for a few hours. However, Zane explains that a few weirdos, one strange-looking small child and an old woman, came looking for him at the Gemini Circus. Zane is sure that they are after his time magic, and thus he and Cuff decided to lay low for a while. Bo-chan tells them to make themselves at home and stay as long as they want to. Then Alice and Cuff head downstairs while the boys stay behind. Bo-chan wants to talk to Zane about what happened at the Witch's World during the Sabbath. On the other hand, Alice gives Cuff a maid's dress for the time being. The latter is super eager to help around the home, and in her overexcitedness, she ends up causing a small explosion due to her fire magic. Unbeknownst to them, the two strange weirdos hear the bang on and realize that both Zane and Cuff are in the mansion. In the meantime, Zane hands over a logbook to Bo-chan. The latter is delighted to know that it contains information about guests that used to come to his family mansion during his childhood. Bo-chan hopes that with this information they can find some clues surrounding the mystery of Sade. Right then, the strange boy who had been looking for Zane at the circus barges into the room and casually hangs upside down from the ceiling. The boy quickly recognizes Bo-chan and refers to him as the Death Incarnate. Nobody has any idea that this small boy is named Nico and is actually an adult wizard caught inside the body of a young child. On the other hand, his partner, the old ugly wizard woman named Ichi, is also confronting Alice and Cuff downstairs. Without wasting any time, Nico quickly extends downwards and touches Bo-chan without any hesitation. To everyone's surprise, Nico does not die, but both he and Bo-chan do get electrocuted due to the power of the curse. Downstairs, Ichi approaches Cuff, who is getting increasingly tensed by the sudden appearance of the stranger. The old woman then renders Cuff motionless by blowing the smoke of her cigarette right on Cuff's face like an ill-mannered middle-aged man. In the meantime, Zane can sense immense magic coming from Nico, and suddenly realizes that this little boy is actually a wizard. Nico, however, doesn't like being referred to as a little boy and gets offended. He begins twirling the entire room like a fidget spinner with his magic. Once he has sufficiently punished everyone, Nico stops the room from spinning. He then introduces himself and then confirms that he is a wizard, which means that he is a human born with magic. The little boy then says that he wants help from Zane, but the latter refuses to trust him. Thankfully, Bo-chan keeps a calm head and says that they should talk to Nico. Shortly afterwards, all three boys sit down to talk, and Nico reveals that Sade put a curse of immortality on him. That is why he tried to touch Bo-chan, and despite doing so, managed to survive. Nico then drops a bombshell and says that it was him who killed the powerful witch Sade. It turns out that the wizards once used to live peacefully among their own community, but one day Sade appeared and announced that humans were too filthy and unqualified to use magic. She then turned Nico into a child and placed the immortality curse on him. The wizards decided that something had to be done, and they prepared in secret. Then one night, a group of several wizards attacked Sade, but the latter turned out to be more powerful than every wizard combined. In a stroke of irony, Sade was eliminated by Nico, who survived only because of the immortality curse that was placed on him. The price for removing the witch was heavy, as several wizards had to sacrifice their lives. Now Nico sought out the witches because he wants Zane's time magic. magic. The little boy wants to use this magic to go back to the time before he was cursed and eliminate Sade before she can cause any damage. In fact, Nico says that he has even gathered a group of wizards for this difficult task. However, Zayn refuses to participate in this selfish and frankly childish plan and says that he has no interest in removing any other curse than Bochan's. But Nico has done his homework and says that he knows Zayn has a lot of talent but doesn't actually have the control to use his magical abilities to their full potential. Nico offers Zayn and Bochan a chance to come to the wizarding school so that they can learn how to control magic. He tempts Zayn by saying that the school is actually co-ed and there will be lots of good-looking women there. Downstairs, Ichi has also sparred with Cuff several times, and each time she has managed to beat the witch. This makes Cuff feel incredibly humiliated as she thinks she is not strong enough to protect Alice. But Ichi also offers Cuff the opportunity to come to the wizarding school and hone her magical abilities. Once everything is done, the two wizards then leave the Duke's mansion in a flying chariot. But before they can leave, Bochan jumps on the wheel because he wants to talk something with Nico. While hanging precariously to the chariot like my walnuts hang in my shorts, Bochan tells Nico that they must find a different way to lift their curses. It is clear that Bochan does not want to motively harm Sade even if she has caused him a lifetime of trouble. However, Nico brushes over this conversation and hands a bag containing necessary items for the reasoning school over to Bochan. He then wraps Bochan in a magic tablecloth and throws him down towards the ground. The very next morning, Cuff and Zayn decide to head back to the circus now that the wizards are gone. But rather surprisingly, both of them have made up their mind to go to the wizarding school. Few days pass by and Bochan has a conversation with Alice regarding the wizardry school. Bochan says that he also plans to attend the school because when it was time to actually study, he was busy flunking. He also agrees with Nico's plan of using time magic to go to the past and stop the witch. However, he is vehemently against harming her. Upon hearing this, Alice also volunteers to go to the school alongside her Duke. Meanwhile, the duo also find a journal entry from Sharon that talks about the women who used to visit the mansion while wearing white habits. According to the entry, Sharon seems to be quite good friends with them. Although it is clear that she didn't know Sade was a witch, Sharon also wrote about how Sade seemed to know what was going on her mind before she could even say it out loud. This rings a bell in Bochan's single-digit IQ mind, and he comes to the conclusion that Sade also had the magic of reading minds, which would make her an extremely formidable enemy. On the other hand, Daleth visits the Bakken mansion in order to spy on her crush. However, Viola catches her ogling at her brother and invites her to come inside the mansion. A few minutes later, Viola has not just convinced Daleth to come in, but also managed to get her on the makeup desk. The young lady gives Daleth a quick haircut and then asks if she is bothered by the scars on her face. Daleth clearly is sensitive about this topic, and even the slightest mention of it awakens a flashback of her sadistic sister. Viola, however, hugs her and says that everything will be alright. Then, the young lady gives the witch official makeup, which hides her scars completely. Following this, the girls go out to the corridor where they meet Walter. Daleth is flustered to see her crush, but Walter is so dumb that he barely sees that Daleth has covered her scars for him. That afternoon, Viola visits the Duke's mansion and sits down for tea. Bochan wonders whether he should ask Viola to come with him to the wizarding school, but he remains unsure if he should do that. But even before you can say anything, Viola has already sensed that there is something strange going on. She then looks around the room like an addict searching for white powder, and quickly finds a strange backpack in one of the closets. The backpack contains a school uniform, and Bochan lies to her that sometimes he likes wearing schoolgirl uniforms. However, right at that moment, Cuff arrives from the window. She immediately asks what she should pack for the wizarding school, without realizing that Viola is also present. Bochan is now forced to tell his sister the truth, and Viola invites herself for the journey. The very next day, the whole group travels towards the wizarding school by train. In fact, even Walter has joined them in this journey, much to the surprise of his elder brother. But Viola reveals that their mother only allowed her to go for this tour under one condition. She would have to take Walter with her. Unbeknownst to the group, Daleth and her faithful sidekick Keto have been continuously spying on them even when they are in the train. In the meantime, Cuff and Zayn finally come clean and tell little Viola that they are actually witches. The little girl is barely surprised at this revelation and instead asks what kind of magic they possess. Cuff is thankful that Viola reacted positively, and so she shows off her fire magic. After a long journey, the group finally makes it to the wizarding school, which is inside a magnificent traditional building. They are soon greeted by the headmaster, who is none other than Nico and his not-so-young girlfriend Ichi. So the new students quickly change into their uniforms, after which they are introduced to the other wizards in the school. Shortly afterwards, the introductory class is held where Nico addresses all of the new students. He tells everyone that they need to work as hard as possible if they want to have even the slightest of chances against Sade. He then dismisses the class and tells everyone to enjoy their dinner as well as the hot baths. Outside, Daleth and Keto also arrive at the school's boundary, but they cannot enter because of a protective magic spell. As the night progresses, everyone enjoys a peaceful time in the communal hot water baths. Bochan and Walter are also alone for the first time in years, and the two brothers have a good conversation. Bochan tells his younger brother about Sade and what plan he has to revert his curse. On the other hand, Ichi and Zayn bond over several bottles of beer like professional drunkards. Once everyone is clean, Ichi meets up with Cuff and reiterates her promise that she will make Cuff as strong as possible. Everyone then heads to their individual rooms for the night, and Alice gets a chance to have a small but cute conversation with Bochan. Since the old hag Ichi has promised to train Cuff, she takes her to an isolated hall to give her first lesson. Ichi begins the class by asking Cuff to light her cigarette, but when the latter does so, she comments that the flame is not hot enough. Cuff is excited as she thinks they will be learning techniques to make her fire magic stronger. But instead of focusing too much on magic, she tries to make sure that Cuff is instead improving the fundamentals of fighting. The old wizard conjures up an opponent made completely out of water, which which makes Cuff's fire magic useless in this situation. The battle begins, and Cuff's athleticism is on full display as she repeatedly destroys her opponent. She also thinks that this is a good physical exercise, but it is not making her magic any stronger. Aichi, who is watching this, knows that Cuff thinks too much during combat. The wizard also knows that Cuff's kindness and empathy towards others is a hindrance during battle. She teaches her how to not get swayed by the thoughts of bochoni or defeat, and instead be completely focused on the present moment. The class ends with Cuff passing out as the training is intense, and Ichi is not very kind to her. However, Ichi still feels that Cuff has a lot of potential, and she is eventually going to do well. Once this morning exercise routine is over, Cuff joins other new students in their first class for the day. The teacher is none other than a short, overweight, middle-aged looking man named Free. In reality, he is a witch who is doing his best to impersonate Nico, physically as well as in mannerism. Free makes everyone take notes in class and even conduct a pop quiz. Bo-chan is the first one in the quiz, and he has no idea what the answer is. Thankfully, Alice intervenes and saves his backside one more time. Later that day, thirsty MILF Daleth infiltrates the school looking for Walter, not realizing that Nico has seen her and has also mistaken her for Sade. Without wasting any time, Nico attacks Daleth and is determined to kill her. However, when he comes to know that she is not Sade, but rather her less glamorous sister, he allows her to join the school as well. In order to potentially learn something important about Sade, Zain proposes to go into the past with Bo-chan, Daleth, and Alice. He is quite confident that it is a safe plan since no one will really recognize Bo-chan and Alice. Furthermore, he is taking Daleth too, as he wants someone who can help them with Daleth. This seems like a nice plan, but obviously there are risks involved. Bo-chan has been concerned about one of them for quite some time, and it is the suspicion that Sade has the ability to read people's minds. If this turns out to be true, it would mean that their plan is as good as a book in the hands of a teenager with an iPad. Bo-chan tries to learn from Daleth if she knows whether her sister can read someone's mind or not, but she does not give a convincing reply. It appears that she is just as clueless. After arriving in the past, Daleth observes everything from the sky. Meanwhile, Zain calls Daleth in the forest, not realizing that it is actually her sister Sade. She immediately turns around and points out that he is from the future, which shocks Zain. Daleth, who has been observing everything from the sky, realizes that Bo-chan's suspicion is quite accurate, as her sister can really see the past. Elsewhere, Bo-chan and Alice are careful not to arouse suspicion and stay away from anyone's eyes. They plan to regroup with Daleth and Zain to make sure that they don't end up having to confront Sade alone. But Bo-chan's grandfather somehow sees the duo and questions them about their motivations. He appears to somehow trust them, and Bo-chan gives him the cryptic message to take care of Sharon. Meanwhile, Sade suddenly tries to attack Zain, but it turns out that he has been using illusion magic. He is quickly flown away by Daleth, who is worried that her sister might catch up to them. Zain opens the time door one more time so that they can head back to the past before Sade finds them again. When he is about to close the door after making sure everyone is back, Sade almost manages to get in with them as well, but Daleth attacks her, forcing her to stay behind. Her attack appears to shock Sade, who was not expecting it from her sister. Once they are back, Zain and his friends try to take cognizance of the situation and hope that their actions do not change the present too much. Comment down below, Chick Magnet, if you finished the video. And if you like this video, you can also check the story of Ku. Ku is a weird emo who loves to wander every night. During one of his walks, he meets a freaky vampire girl who offers to turn him into a vampire if he lets her suck him off. But he will have to fall in love with her or he will die in 1 year.